Chapter 418. It really is useless against the celestial sovereign's divine sense. Xiaoling Yu sighed inwardly. Fortunately, he didn't expect the invisibility divine robe to be able to fool a celestial sovereign's divine sense. Before the colorful silk wrapped around him, he had already dodged. Since the invisibility divine robe was useless, Xiaoling Yu didn't waste his time and energy maintaining the invisibility divine robe. He immediately revealed himself. Fairy Lan Yao wasn't too surprised that her attack didn't hit. However, when she was about to attack again, the 2,000 armored puppets shot countless beams of divine light at her. Fairy Lan Yao used the colorful silk to block, but her body was unavoidably sent flying far away. Although the attacks of the 2,000 armored puppets could restrain Fairy Lan Yao, they couldn't cause her any harm. Leave behind your divine abode and these armored puppets, and I can overlook your impudent actions in the heavens' incense school. I can also remove the soul-shifting seal on your wife. After Fairy Blue Jade stabilized herself, she generously suggested, "A celestial sovereign is actually like this. You've really opened my eyes." Xiaoling Yu angrily cursed in response. Then his body was wrapped in purple-black primal chaos true fire. He fearlessly charged forward again. In the face of such a huge gap in cultivation, your special techniques are useless. Fairy Blue Jade laughed in disdain. Then countless strands of colorful silk flew over from all directions. Xiaoling Yu only saw a blur before he was surrounded by the colorful silk. He couldn't dodge at all. The colorful silk was a divine tool that Fairy Lan Yao often used. Although it was afraid of being burned by the primal chaos true fire, it could still trap Xiaoling Yu for a while, preventing Xiaoling Yu from moving. After Fairy Lan Yao easily blocked another wave of divine light from the armored puppets, a long needle with divine light whistled out. This was Fairy Lan Yao's world-piercing needle. The divine world-piercing needle pierced through the layers of colorful silk, then pierced through the primordial flame and Xiaoling Yu's chest. With just one blow, Xiaoling Yu was already severely injured. Although he was not very afraid of the Celestial Prime, it was impossible for him to kill the Celestial Prime. Moreover, if he had not chosen to escape from the beginning, it was very likely that he would have been injured by the Celestial Prime. Xiaoling Yu calmed down after the world-piercing divine needle pierced through his chest. He used the purplish-black primordial flame of chaos to force the colorful silk back. Then, he waited for the armored puppets to release another round of divine light before he put himself and the armored puppets into his spiritual abode. Before Fairy Blue Jade stabilized herself, the divine dwelling had already sped up. In a flash, it disappeared from the heavens' incense school. The speed of the divine dwellings is much faster than before. Just as Fairy Blue Jade was about to chase, she was surprised to find that the divine palace had already flown out of the range of her divine sense. The speed of the divine dwellings was indeed much faster than before, because Xiaoling Yu had almost completely refined the divine dwellings. After the quality of the primordial flame of chaos had greatly increased, he could refine any magic treasure much faster. First, Xiaoling Yu quickly flew to the teleportation plaza of the Myriad Flower City. Then, he teleported there without waiting in line. Before he teleported, he did not forget to send a message to the person in charge of the Myriad Flower City's investigation department. After teleporting several times, he stopped at a continent called the Pinglong Continent and entered the city of Pinglong. Not long after, the person in charge of the investigation department of the Myriad Flower City arrived at Pinglong and brought Xiaoling Yu to the investigation department of the Pinglong City. Xiaoling Yu's physical injuries were not very serious, but he still needed some time to fully recover. However, he was not in a hurry to recover. Instead, he said to the two people in charge of the investigation department, "Help me contact Elder Qi and ask him to come here. The sooner the better." When Elder Qi arrived at the Pinglong continent, 500 years had already passed. Fortunately, the fog only enveloped Anya's soul. Anya was still unconscious, but she did not lose her life. Xiaoling Yu naturally guarded Anya. He paid close attention to Anya at all times, afraid that she would be in danger. "Brother Xiao, what are you going to do?" Elder Qi had clearly heard about Anya's situation. After arriving, he knew that Xiao Yu was anxious, so he did not beat around the bush. "Elder Qi, you can't remove the soul-shifting seal, right?" Xiao Yu asked with some hope. Elder Qi shook his head and said, "The soul-shifting seal of the Heaven's Incense School is very powerful and special. If it was cast by a cultivator below the Emperor level, I can remove it. However, if it was cast by an Emperor-level expert of the Heaven's Incense School, only Fairy Lan Yao can remove it." "Elder Qi, I agree to your previous suggestion," Xiao Yu said as calmly as possible. Elder Qi's eyes lit up when he heard this. He said, "Brother Xiao can mobilize all the descendants of Earth in the immortal world, including my old bones." Xiao Yu nodded and said, "If we attack the Heaven's Incense School, how confident are we in winning?" Elder Qi said confidently, "It will be difficult to hurt Fairy Lan Yao, but it will be easy to flatten the Heaven's Incense School." However, after thinking about it, Elder Qi said, "It's easy to defeat the Heaven's Incense School. With me restraining Fairy Lan Yao, the rest of the people from the Heaven's Incense School are nothing to be afraid of. They don't have much experience in battle, so their combat strength can't be that strong. However, the Heaven's Incense School is a top sect in the immortal world. Not to mention their deep roots, they also have deep relationships with many other large sections. Not to mention others. Hu Yunzi of the Heavenly Dao sect has a good relationship with Fairy Lan Yao. Elder Qi means that we can attack by force." Xiao Yu asked with a frown. Elder Qi shook his head and said, "It's not that we can't, but we need to prepare. Moreover, we need to act quickly. We can't give them too much time to react. Once they delay us, we will most likely suffer heavy losses. Don't you think it's inappropriate to mobilize so many people for my matter?" Xiao Yu probed again. "Hee, you should think about this carefully. If you want to fight, we'll fight." Elder Qi said with a relaxed smile. "Today, everyone charge for me. In the future, I will shed my blood for everyone." Xiao Yu said generously. "Actually, when I came, I already notified everyone. At most, in 1,000 years, at least half of the emperors will be here. When that time comes, we can take action. We can't gather all of our forces here in such a short period of time." Elder Qi said, "I'm afraid she can't wait 1,000 years." Xiao Yu said worriedly, "With me here, you can rest assured. Although I can't remove the soul transfer seal, I can still control it." Elder Qi comforted. With this, Xiao Yu was relieved. While waiting for the Earth's descendants to arrive, Xiao Yu left Anya in Elder Qi's care. He continued to refine the armored puppets. The Earth's descendants were very secretive. Their actions were also very secretive. Even if something big was about to happen, there wouldn't be too much of a disturbance. Her opponent had escaped. In order to prevent her opponent from coming back, Fairy Lan Yao naturally had to continue guarding the Heaven's Incense School. She didn't know that Xiao Yu was an Earth's descendant. Otherwise, her choice might have changed. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Fairy Lan Yao, who was in seclusion in a secret room, suddenly had a change in expression. Then, her figure disappeared. In the next moment, Fairy Lan Yao appeared at the entrance of the Heaven's Incense School. At this moment, there were more than 2,500 armored puppets standing in a neat row at the entrance. The divine light shining from their bodies condensed into a thin aura that made one's heart palpitate. Xiao Yu stood above these armored puppets and looked coldly at the entrance of the Heaven's Incense School. Perhaps it was because Xiao Yu had charged into the Heaven's Incense School too easily last time. Ever since he was forced to escape, the Heaven's Incense School had sealed the entrance and activated the sect protection formation. Fairy Lan Yao had been frightened earlier because Xiao Yu had attacked the Heaven's Incense School's formation. Fairy Lan Yao narrowed her eyes and said, "You dare to come again?" Xiao Yu replied, "If you agree to remove the soul-shifting seal for my wife and apologize for it, I can stop." Fairy Lan Yao replied in the same tone, "If you leave behind these armored puppets and the divine palace, I will remove the soul-shifting seal for your wife." Then your Heaven's Incense School will disappear from the immortal world like the wondrous Pill School. With that, Shaolin Yu took out his divine palace. With a thought, all the Earth's descendant experts he had stored in his divine palace appeared in front of the Heaven's Incense School. After so many years of recuperation, the injuries that the world-piercing divine needle had caused to Shaolin Yu had naturally healed. He was now in peak condition. Fairy Lan Yao's heart skipped a beat when she saw nearly 200 Emperor-level experts appear in front of her entrance. However, she then smiled and said, "No matter how many immortal emperors there are, they can't do anything to a celestial prime. Don't even think about breaking this sect protection formation. I advise you to quickly retreat. Otherwise, I don't mind killing you all." The Heaven's Incense School isn't the only place with celestial primes. Elder Qi slowly flew over from afar. His voice reverberated in everyone's ears. "I was wondering who could invite so many immortal emperor experts at once. It turns out that it's you, the remnants of Earth." Fairy Lan Yao said coldly. At this time, the childishness on her face was gone, replaced by a solemn expression. Elder Qi transmitted his voice to Shaolin Yu. "Things might change if you delay. You can attack now." "Kill!" Shaolin Yu shouted. The aura around his body continued to rise. The purple-black primal chaos fire had already wrapped around him. Roar! More than 2,500 armored puppets responded. Divine light filled the sky and blasted toward the entrance of the Heaven's Incense School. The nearly 200 immortal emperors in the air also attacked at the same time. Streaks of light formed from immortal talismans and immortal treasures shot toward the entrance of the Heaven's Incense School. When Fairy Lan Yao saw this, she first used colored silk to block the divine light of the armored puppets. Then, she returned to the base. "All disciples of the Heaven's Incense School, listen to my orders. A strong enemy has invaded. Everyone prepare to fight." Chapter 419. Fairy Blue Jade was very clear about the power of the Heaven's Incense School's sect protecting formation. It wouldn't be able to last long against such a lineup, especially when there were immortal sovereigns among them. Immortal sovereigns possessed divine power and could unleash the full power of divine artifacts. Fairy Blue Jade couldn't allow the immortal sovereigns to attack so recklessly. Therefore, after reminding the Heaven's Incense School disciples to prepare for battle, Fairy Blue Jade charged out again. She first sent a message and then went to find Elder Qi. A female cultivator in the Myriad Flower City looked at her communication bead, and her expression changed greatly. She then entered the teleportation formation and left the Myriad Flower Continent. As Fairy Blue Jade and Elder Qi fought, they left the Heaven's Incense School's base. No one knew where they went to fight. If the two immortal sovereigns fought in the air not far from the ground of the Myriad Flower Continent wouldn't be able to withstand it. If the two immortal sovereigns fought with all their might, it wouldn't be a problem for them to destroy a continent in the immortal realm. Elder Qi didn't want his fight with Fairy Blue Jade to affect Shaolin Yu and the other Earth Descendants' attacks on the Heaven's Incense School. Fairy Blue Jade also didn't want to affect the sect protecting formation's defense, nor did she want to affect the Heaven's Incense School disciples. Therefore, the two tacitly agreed to fight in the sky above the Myriad Flower Continent. The battlefield of immortal sovereigns was usually in the sky of the immortal realm because it could be destroyed at will. The Heaven's Incense School's base wasn't in chaos. Dan Rong and the other immortal emperors gathered together to maintain the sect protecting formation. The immortal monarch disciples gathered the Heaven's Incense School's elite disciples to prepare for battle. The sect protecting formation bought the Heaven's Incense School disciples time to prepare, but couldn't protect them forever. Fairy Blue Jade had already sent people to ask for reinforcements. Whether or not reinforcements could arrive in time depended on how long the sect protecting formation could last. As one of the top sects in the immortal world, the Heaven Incense School was even more powerful than the Nanhua Immortal School. Not only did the Heaven Incense School have an immortal venerable, they also had twice as many immortal emperors as the Nanhua Immortal School. They should be able to hold on for a while with the sect protecting Grand Array. close to 200 immortal emperors of Earth's descendants, in addition to more than 2,500 armored puppets that could release divine light attacks. They were constantly bombarding at the same time. Moreover, they were not restrained at all. Their attacks were definitely not to be underestimated. It was definitely not a problem for them to break this formation. However, before they came, they were clear that they had to break this formation as soon as possible. Therefore, their attacks were exceptionally powerful. The protective formation of the Heaven's Incense School was extremely wondrous as well. It did not seem to be damaged at all, but as long as an attack arrived, countless colorful petals would appear out of nowhere, blocking everything that came their way. Moreover, it did not seem to be damaged at all. Xiaoling Yu did not remain idle either. As he used his mind to control the armored puppets to attack, he also used his chaotic primordial fire to transform into a purplish-black fire dragon to attack the Heaven's Incense School's protective array. Such a huge commotion at the Heaven's Incense School naturally alarmed all the cultivators on the myriad flower continent. However, many cultivators only glanced from afar before retreating. Many cultivators felt that something big was about to happen on the myriad flower continent, so they all left. It was obvious that someone dared to attack the Heaven's Incense School. The attacker was not an ordinary force, so no one dared to rashly approach the battlefield. When Xiaoling Yu killed Mei Ling, Fairy Blue Jade herself took more than 200 years to get back. The reinforcements she could ask for would definitely take at least twice as long to get here. Without the 2,000 armored puppets and Xiaoling Yu's purplish-black primal chaos true fire, it would be very difficult for the 200 immortal emperors to break through the sect protecting formation. However, there were no ifs in reality. Under the bombardment of the Earth descendant powerhouses and the armored puppets, the Heaven's Incense School's protective array only lasted for less than 50 years before it was broken. When the array collapsed, the Heaven's Incense School's emperor-level powerhouses who maintained the entire array spat out blood, their faces as pale as paper. The immortal emperors of the Heaven's Incense School had more or less suffered some internal injuries. The Earth-descendant powerhouses had been attacking continuously for so many years, so they had naturally expended a lot of energy. However, Xiaoling Yu's armored puppets were different. Xiaoling Yu had stored many godstones in their bodies to provide them with energy. They were almost always in peak condition. Moreover, these armored puppets had extremely strong defenses. As long as they were not attacked by divine weapons, there would not be any problems. They were also fierce and fearless. When they charged together, the Heaven's Incense School powerhouses who had lost the protection of the formation and were prepared to fight were all terrified. More than 2,500 armored puppets charged into the Heaven's Incense School first. Xiaoling Yu led nearly 200 Earth-descendant powerhouses and followed closely behind. The Heaven's Incense School's resistance was like a thin piece of paper that could be broken with a poke. After all, female cultivators were still female. They were naturally inferior to male cultivators when it came to fighting. Furthermore, the Heaven's Incense School had not fought against any force, big or small, for many years. In the beginning, the immortal emperors were able to maintain order. However, when the immortal emperors could not even take care of themselves, the entire Heaven's Incense School was in chaos. The Earth-descendant powerhouses were different. They were scattered all over the immortal realm and often had to carry out missions. Almost all of them had been through hundreds of battles. Their battle awareness and techniques far surpassed these female cultivators who were usually chattering. Moreover, the Earth-descendant powerhouses had been bullied by the various forces of the immortal realm for many years. It was rare for them to have a chance to vent their anger. Moreover, it was such a large-scale operation. Naturally, they were all fighting with all their might, even if the opponent was a seemingly weak woman. Fairy Lan Yao knew that the Heaven's Incense School's disciples were not strong enough. That was why she had sent people to ask for reinforcements. However, before the reinforcements had arrived and the sect's protective formation had been broken, she finally realized the severity of the problem. When Fairy Lan Yao sensed that the immortal emperors of the Heavens Incense School's immortal emperor's soul jade tablets had shattered in her storage ring, she stopped fighting with Elder Qi and said, "Stop. I agree to remove the soul-shifting seal on that woman." Elder Qi smiled and then flew down, telling Shaolin Yu and the other Earth descendants to stop attacking. Fairy Lan Yao also flew down. When she saw that the originally beautiful base had been reduced to ruins and the Heavens Incense School's disciples' faces filled with fear and embarrassment, her captivating red lips couldn't help but twitch. Just for one person, you made such a big fuss. Was it worth it? Even if you won, you still lost a dozen or so immortal emperors, Fairy Lan Yao said with a cold smile. At this moment, Shaolin Yu discovered that although they won, it was just as Fairy Lan Yao said. A dozen or so immortal emperors from Earth had died in battle. However, in a battle of this scale, it was impossible to not have any losses. After Shaolin Yu calmed down, she still felt a bit guilty. This is not just for one person, but also for our pride. We will use our own strength to tell a large sect, like your Heaven's Incense School, that sometimes you have to be careful. It's war, so how can there be no sacrifices? Elder Qi replied with a smile. You have displayed your strength, but this will also alert the various powers of the immortal realm. I want to see how you will deal with this in the future, Fairy Lan Yao said with a cold snort. Today, we can defeat your Heaven's Incense School. In the future, we will definitely be able to defeat other powerful enemies. In ancient times, our ancestors from Earth were able to sweep through the world. Now, our descendants from Earth also have the courage to be enemies with the world. Shaolin Yu replied with an indifferent tone. Let's not talk nonsense. Invite her out. I will remove the soul-shifting seal for her. Fairy Lan Yao didn't have the mood to continue arguing. With a thought, the unconscious Anya appeared in Shaolin Yu's arms. Shaolin Yu carried Anya and took a few steps forward, arriving in front of Fairy Lan Yao. The current situation didn't allow Fairy Lan Yao to continue being tough. If she didn't back down, she would be the only one left from the Heaven's Incense School. Fairy Lan Yao didn't do much. She only swept her sleeve across Anya's head, and the fog surrounding Anya's soul disappeared. Okay, you should go, Fairy Lan Yao said with a wave of her sleeve. She looked very tired. Shaolin Yu invited Anya back into the god's abode and said, if you had agreed to remove the soul-shifting seal before the battle, we would have retreated. However, we have suffered such great losses. Fairy, do you think this is over? Fairy Lan Yao knew that the other party wouldn't let this go. After all, the other party had won. The defeated party would never be able to negotiate. If they continued to fight, Fairy Lan Yao might be fine, but the other disciples of the Heaven's Incense School would definitely be slaughtered. Thus, she said very rationally, what other conditions do you have? We don't ask for immortal stones or divine stones. We also don't ask for immortal treasures or divine artifacts. We only ask that you, Fairy Lan Yao, apologize for this matter. With that, Shaolin Yu pointed around and said, in front of these fellow immortals who are watching from afar. Fairy Lan Yao was more willing to accept conditions such as immortal stones or divine stones, but she had no other choice. Thus, after pondering for a long time, she nodded. Fairy Lan Yao's apology spread for tens of thousands of kilometers. Many of the braver spectators heard it clearly. These spectators were all extremely shocked. To be able to force Fairy Lan Yao to this point, they could naturally tell who had won. Mei Ling, who had pursued the culprit, had already been killed. Because of this, the Heaven's Incense School had also suffered great losses. Not only had their base been reduced to ruins, but they had also lost nearly 40 immortal emperors. In addition, Fairy Lan Yao's apology made the Heaven's Incense School lose all face. Shaolin Yu and Elder Qi felt that this was enough. There was no need to continue fighting. After all, no matter how they fought, Fairy Lan Yao would be fine. However, the descendants of Earth would definitely suffer more casualties. Thus, after Fairy Lan Yao apologized, the descendants of Earth disappeared with the 2,000 armored puppets. Shaolin Yu and Elder Qi, on the other hand, calmly flew away under the fearful gazes of countless heaven-incensed school disciples and the shock of countless spectating cultivators. After this battle, Xiaoling Yu used the powerful support of the descendants of Earth to force Fairy Lan Yao to remove the soul transfer seal on Anya. Although he succeeded, he was also completely tied to the descendants of Earth. Chapter 420. Anya gradually woke up after the soul transfer seal was removed. Anya felt her eyes sting when she saw the person she missed day and night looking at her with tenderness and concern. However, she was stubborn and didn't shed any tears. Instead, she silently threw herself into Xiaoling Yu's arms, feeling the warmth that she was no longer familiar with but always missed. After hugging for a while, Anya began to talk about her life after Xiaoling Yu's ascension. Shuntian Academy did well in the cultivation world with countless students. Its reputation and influence grew day by day. Shuntian Academy's cultivation ideology was also recognized by many cultivators in the cultivation world. Anya didn't ascend to the immortal world until 1,300 years after Xiaoling Yu ascended to the devil world. She had been cultivating alone on the Wanhua continent and rarely came out. Anya had the merciless divine sword. She knew that she was in trouble because of her wealth, so she didn't dare to show her face in public. Moreover, she was a sword cultivator and didn't need many immortal stones to cultivate. However, Anya later found that she still needed to know more about the immortal world and its cultivation methods so that she could seek opportunities and breakthroughs. Cultivating behind closed doors was a taboo for cultivators. Therefore, cultivators would travel outside whenever they encountered a bottleneck or just made a major breakthrough. When Anya was traveling, the Heaven Incense School happened to be recruiting new disciples. She wanted to take the test. With Anya's aptitude, she should have been able to pass the Heaven's Incense School's test without a hitch. However, Anya didn't expect that it was because of her great aptitude that the examiner had invited Mei Ling over. As an immortal emperor expert, Mei Ling was naturally able to see through Anya and had evil thoughts about her. Mei Ling pretended to make things difficult for Anya, which made Anya, who was always proud and respected by millions of people in the cultivation world, very angry. Therefore, Anya talked back to Mei Ling, which gave Mei Ling an excuse to imprison Anya. After being imprisoned for a few months, Mei Ling came to the secret room and said that she wanted Anya to cooperate with her to activate a secret technique to transfer Anya's excellent talent to her. Once the transfer was successful, Mei Ling would have the exceptional aptitude of Anya. Moreover, she would be in the immortal emperor stage. This way, Mei Ling would become an extremely powerful immortal emperor stage sword cultivator. Actually, this kind of thing happened in the Heaven Incense School and many other large sects of the immortal world. However, this method was too vicious, so the large sects of the immortal world didn't dare to use it openly. It was already very difficult for immortal emperors to advance to immortal venerables. Moreover, the divine tribulation was so difficult to pass. It was no wonder that many experts in the immortal world would think of some secret techniques to change their innate talent. They would use some unorthodox methods to allow themselves to go further on the path of cultivation. This kind of secret technique was known to all the big shots of the various sects and clans. In fact, they all tacitly approved of it. That was why Mei Ling dared to be so confident in front of Dan Rome. However, this kind of secret technique mostly required the cooperation of the passive party in order to maximize its effectiveness. Therefore, when Anya refused, Mei Ling could only imprison her and wait for her to despair. Generally speaking, when ordinary cultivators were imprisoned like this, they would be able to withstand it at the beginning. However, when there was no hope, they would give in. After all, this kind of secret technique wouldn't take the victim's life. It would only make the victim's aptitude become very ordinary. When Anya signed up for the test, she said that she didn't belong to any sect or clan and had just ascended. Mei Ling never thought that this matter would become so difficult to resolve. This was the general situation. Xiaoling Yu was originally very angry. However, when he saw that Anya was only a little frightened and wasn't injured at all, and that he had taught the Heaven Incense School a lesson, his anger subsided. Anya was trapped in the cell. She had thought that Xiaoling Yu would come to save her, but she didn't have much hope. After all, Xiaoling Yu had just ascended. How could he deal with a top sect like the Heaven Incense School? Moreover, how did he know about her situation? Anya even suspected that Xiaoling Yu had come to the immortal realm from the demon realm. Even so, Anya wouldn't despair, let alone give in, even if she died. However, Anya was able to persevere because of the merciless sword. It was because Mei Ling discovered that Anya had the merciless sword that she wanted to keep Anya's consciousness. Otherwise, Mei Ling wouldn't be able to refine the merciless sword. As for the soul transfer seal, Xiaoling Yu and Anya didn't know much about it. However, after Xiaoling Yu came looking for her, Mei Ling had no choice but to take a step back and settle for the second best. It's all in the past. In the future, no one will let you suffer anymore. After listening to Anya, Xiaoling Yu hugged Anya even tighter and spoke gently but firmly. You should protect me. However, Anya, have never liked being protected since I was young. It's the same in the cultivation world and the immortal realm. I also want to become stronger. I believe I can do it. Anya shook her head and spoke confidently. At this time, there was no one else in the divine abode. After leaving the myriad flower continent, the powerhouses of the earth descendants all left. Elder Qi also said a few words and left a heavy token for Xiaoling Yu before leaving. Now that the strength and traces of the earth descendants have been exposed, Elder Qi and the powerhouses of the earth descendants had to prepare well. This time, they had made a move against the top sects of the immortal realm. In the future, they would also counterattack. At the very least, Fairy Lan Yao wouldn't give up so easily. After leaving the myriad flower continent, Xiaoling Yu also invited Anya out of the divine abode. The two of them weren't in a hurry to go anywhere. Whenever they came across a continent in the immortal realm, they would stop and travel for a while. For many years, Xiaoling Yu hadn't relaxed. This time, he could accompany Anya, who wasn't very familiar with the immortal realm, to relax. The reason Xiaoling Yu came to the immortal realm was to find Anya. Now that this most important task had been completed, he felt much more relaxed. However, while one burden had been taken off, another, even heavier burden had been placed on his shoulders. Perhaps it was because he had experienced a lot over the years, so Xiaoling Yu was more familiar with his realm. Or perhaps it was because this relaxation allowed him to open up his mind. In short, after traveling for a while, Xiaoling Yu's cultivation naturally reached the peak of the late stage of the monarch realm. He could already begin to break through the next great realm of the 9-revolution chaos formula, which was the 5th revolution, the Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage. The Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage was a transition from the middle level to the upper level of the Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage. The strength of an early Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator was still within the scope of the immortal, devil, and monster realms. However, an intermediate Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator was already at the God realm. At the late Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage, cultivator would gradually face the test of the Chaos Divinity Tribulation. If they could successfully pass it, they could ascend to the God realm. In theory, an early Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator's strength was about the same as an Immortal Emperor Stage cultivator's strength, and an intermediate Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator's strength was comparable to an Immortal Prime. However, at the late Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator's realm was one level higher than an Immortal Prime. Therefore, if one did not consider magic treasures, a late Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator was almost invincible in the 3 realms. However, Xiaoling Yu could not be said in theory. Before he reached the early Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage, he already had strength comparable to an Immortal Emperor. Once he successfully reached the early Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage, with his various means, he would definitely be able to fight an Immortal Prime like Blue Jade Fairy. He would not be defeated so easily like last time when he fought with Blue Jade Fairy. Now, because of Anya's matter, Xiaoling Yu had exposed the strength of the descendants of Earth. The descendants of Earth would definitely be in a difficult situation for a period of time. If Xiaoling Yu reached the early Chaos Divinity transformation stage, then the descendants of Earth would have two immortal primes, and they would have a stronger self-defense force. After traveling for nearly 1,000 years, Anya no longer had the interest to continue traveling. Xiaoling Yu brought her to the East Imperial Continent. After returning to the East Imperial Continent, Xiaoling Yu did not have any scruples and directly brought Anya back to the Nanhua Immortal Sect. After all, when he joined the Nanhua Immortal Sect, he had sworn that as long as the Nanhua Immortal Sect did not let Xiaoling Yu down, he would still be a disciple of the Nanhua Immortal Sect. First of all, this identity did not have any negative impact on him. Second of all, with his current strength, it was very unlikely that the Nanhua Immortal Sect would let him down. Therefore, he did not have to leave. After returning for less than 2 hours, Qing Xian came to the door. Senior sister is here. Little brother has something to ask of senior sister. Xiaoling Yu smiled and welcomed her. Qing Xian was a little annoyed that Xiaoling Yu left without saying goodbye. Therefore, she snorted coldly. However, her expression became very gentle as she looked at Anya and said, "This must be sister-in-law, right? Little sister Anya. Greetings, senior sister." Anya immediately bowed. "Sister-in-law, you don't have to be so polite. Junior brother Xiao and I have always been good friends. Sister-in-law, you and I are also family," Qing Xian said politely. However, her words were thought-provoking. Anya was not stupid. After hearing Qing Xian's words, she secretly glanced at Xiaoling Yu. However, she did not find any strange expression on Xiaoling Yu's face. Qing Xian did not need to be greeted. She sat down and ignored Xiaoling Yu. Instead, she looked at Anya and said curiously, "Sister-in-law's aura is very familiar to me. If I'm not wrong, sister-in-law, you should also be practicing the way of the sword." Anya nodded and replied, "My realm is not high. Senior sister, please teach me more in the future." Qing Xian said modestly, "I'm just a dabbler in the way of the sword. I've only done a little research. I can't compare to a pure way of the sword like sister-in-law. Moreover, in the cultivation of the way of the sword, one's current realm is not important. What's important is talent. Sister-in-law's talent and aptitude are both better than mine. We can communicate more in the future." Xiaoling Yu stood at the side with a helpless expression. He did not know how to interrupt. Qing Xian acted as if she was the host. She invited Anya to sit down and said, "Sister-in-law, you're very lucky." Junior brother Xiao crossed over from the demon realm and killed his way into the Heaven's Incense School alone for you. If anyone is willing to do this for me, their death will be worth it. Chapter 421. Senior sister, you're so outstanding. I'm sure you'll attract the admiration of many strong cultivators. Anya was in charge of an academy in the cultivation world, so she had a lot of work to do. Naturally, her words were thoughtful. "Junior brother Xiao, you seem to have said that you need my help with something. May I know what it is?" At this moment, Qing Xian seemed to have just noticed Xiaoling Yu. "I'm going to go into seclusion to break through, but I lack some materials. I want to ask senior sister to help me collect them through our channels," Xiaoling Yu quickly replied. Originally, Xiaoling Yu could also ask Zhongji for help. The speed of the Global Intelligence Organization's operation might be faster. However, all the organizations of Earth's descendants were actively preparing. Furthermore, he had just asked them for help. It was indeed inappropriate to trouble them at this time. "Give me the list of materials. I'll arrange for them to do it as soon as possible," Qing Xian nodded and said. Xiaoling Yu had already prepared the list of materials. He handed it to Qing Xian and thanked her profusely. "Then I won't bother you anymore." Qing Xian stood up and said to Anya, "Sister-in-law, if you have time, you can come and talk to me. I'm in the courtyard on the left." "Sure," Anya replied. Qing Xian didn't say much and left the pavilion. Xiaoling Yu was puzzled. When did Qing Xian move to the courtyard next to his? For someone like Qing Xian, she could choose almost any place in the Nanhua Immortal Sect's encampment except for a few important places. However, Xiaoling Yu was puzzled why she chose to live next to him instead of anywhere else. What Xiaoling Yu didn't know was that when he left, Qing Xian couldn't help but come over to see if he was back. After a long time, she lost her patience and decided to live next to him and wait for him every day. Your senior sister seems to treat you well. After Qing Xian left, Anya said in a strange tone, "Why? Are you jealous?" Xiaoling Yu smiled and hugged Anya from behind to hide the strange look on his face. "She's not jealous, but I can feel that she has feelings for you," Anya said softly. "That's because I've saved her life a few times, so she's grateful to me," Xiaoling Yu said nonchalantly. Anya turned around and stared at Xiaoling Yu's face as she asked, "You saved my life? Don't tell me it's the same situation as when you saved my life." Back then, when Anya was seriously injured, Xiaoling Yu used the dual cultivation technique to save her. He naturally remembered this clearly. "Of course not," Xiaoling Yu replied without changing her expression. Anya turned around and leaned against Xiaoling Yu's chest as she muttered to herself, "I'm already unable to repay you for saving my life once. After saving your life a few times, I'm afraid." No wonder she's... At this moment, Xiaoling Yu couldn't help but think of Miao Ying, who was still in the demon realm. 10 years after Xiaoling Yu returned to the Nanhua immortal sect, Qing Xian sent over the materials that Xiaoling Yu needed. After that, Xiaoling Yu went into seclusion. Before going into seclusion, Xiaoling Yu could only leave Anya in Qing Xian's care. He had saved Qing Xian's life before and was also close friends with Qing Xian. He believed that Qing Xian would definitely treat Anya well. During the 10 years of waiting for Qing Xian to gather the materials, Qing Pingzi and Qing Wei had both come to find Xiaoling Yu to see if he had changed his mind. However, they were all disappointed. However, they were also glad that Xiaoling Yu didn't join the other party's faction. To be honest, Qing Xian was a little jealous of Anya. She felt that if Anya didn't exist, she would be Xiaoling Yu's first choice. However, Qing Xian was more curious. Xiaoling Yu was a demon cultivator, while Anya was a sword cultivator. How did the two of them dual cultivate? Since Anya had ascended to the immortal realm, it proved that she was an immortal sword cultivator and not a demon sword cultivator. Qing Xian wasn't a very patient woman. She was also a straightforward person. Although she kept this question in her heart, she still found a chance to mention it to Anya. Anya blushed and replied, "This is related to the secret of his cultivation method, so I don't dare to speak carelessly. In fact, I'm not very clear about it either. In any case, it won't affect our dual cultivation at all." Qing Xian wasn't very satisfied with Anya's answer. However, she knew that Anya wasn't lying to her. There was no need for her to lie to her. During the days when Xiaoling Yu was in seclusion, Anya was always with Qing Xian. Now that Qing Xian was a free person, she didn't have to think about the conflict between factions. She was no longer greedy for the position of sect leader. As a late-stage, emperor-level expert, she could naturally give Anya pointers in many aspects. Although Qing Xian was not a proper cultivator of the Tao of the Sword, her attainments in the Tao of the Sword were not shallow. After all, she had cultivated for countless years. Even if she occasionally took the time to study the Tao of the Sword, her cultivation in the Tao of the Sword was far beyond the current Anya. With Qing Xian's guidance and help, Anya naturally improved rapidly. The relationship between the two women also deepened day by day. It was also because Qing Xian spared no effort in helping her. Moreover, Qing Xian was also an expert in sword Tao that Anya felt grateful and close to Qing Xian from the bottom of her heart. Sometimes, Anya asked herself in her heart, if Qing Xian wanted to snatch Xiaoling Yu from her, would she draw her sword and fight with her? Xiaoling Yu, who was in seclusion, didn't care about the relationship between the two women. He didn't have the time to think about it. He first quietly sorted out his many years of encounters, then calmed himself down and adjusted his state of mind. After that, he began to charge towards the chaotic soul formation stage. Only by entering the chaotic soul formation stage could Xiaoling Yu be considered a true top expert in the immortal world. Only then could he be qualified to lead the descendants of Earth to restore the glory of the ancient experts of Earth. In Pinglong City, Xiaoling Yu once said, "Everyone fought for me today. In the future, I will shed my blood for everyone." This sentence wasn't said on a whim. It was a man's solemn promise. Xiaoling Yu had already engraved it in his heart. People often said that a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. In order to help him, the descendants of Earth had already lost more than 10 Emperor-level experts in battle. There was no reason for him not to do everything for everyone. However, there was also great danger in breaking through to the chaotic soul formation stage. According to Xiaoling Yu's current preparations, his success rate was only 40%. Xiaoling Yu couldn't fail, because failure meant that he would lose everything, including his life. Right now, the only way to increase his success rate was to raise the quality of his body to the level of a low-grade divine artifact. However, he didn't have suitable high-quality materials to transform his body. Fortunately, he found another way to raise the quality of his body in the alchemy grandmaster Mao Zhen's storage ring. It was the golden body bathing in flames. It was a method that used different kinds of flames to temper the body. As an alchemy grandmaster, Mao Zhen had a divine fire in his body. If he wanted to keep the divine fire in his body for a long time, he needed to have exquisite fire control techniques. He also needed to have a strong body quality. Mao Zhen's golden body bathing in flames was the golden body bathing in flames. Although this was an immortal Dao method, it was also suitable for Xiaoling Yu. Others thought that Xiaoling Yu was a pure devil Dao cultivator, but Xiaoling Yu knew that wasn't the case. He was just cultivating the chaotic force that had been demonized. However, the essence was still the chaotic force. Xiaoling Yu's body quality had undergone many transformations and improvements. Now, it had reached the quality of a quasi-divine artifact. It only needed one more step to be comparable to a low-grade divine artifact. With a body quality that was comparable to a low-grade divine artifact, he would be able to receive more and more powerful energy attacks. This would increase his success rate by at least 20%. However, this 20% success rate was very important. According to the requirements of the golden body bathing in flames, a quasi-divine artifact's body quality had to be tempered with divine fire. It just so happened that the primal chaos primordial fire in Xiaoling Yu's body was more powerful than ordinary divine fire. Moreover, Xiaoling Yu could completely control it. Therefore, he had the conditions to raise the quality of his body. Moreover, some of the materials that Xiaoling Yu had asked Qing Xian to help him collect were used in the golden body bathing in flames. 2 years after entering seclusion, Xiaoling Yu, who was in his spiritual abode, began to gradually release the suppression of the primal chaos primordial fire from his high-grade bloodline. The purple-black primal chaos primordial fire's power was gradually released. At the same time, it carefully tempered every part of Xiaoling Yu's body from head to toe. The process was painful, but in order to successfully advance to the chaotic soul formation stage, for his own sake, he could only endure it. However, this process seemed to take a very long time to end. Xiaoling Yu expected this process to be very long. In the beginning, he would calculate the time. However, as he calculated and calculated, he became numb to it and was too lazy to waste time on it. He could feel his body becoming stronger almost all the time. Xiaoling Yu did not feel that time was passing too slowly or how boring his days were. However, when he raised the quality of his entire body to be comparable to a low-grade divine artifact, he came out of seclusion and asked Anya. She told him that 200,000 years had passed. 200,000 years was nothing to Qing Xian. Therefore, she was able to calm Anya and make Anya wait patiently. After accompanying Anya for a while to comfort her, Xiaoling Yu sent a message to Zhongzhi to ask about the current situation of the descendants of Earth. Then, he entered seclusion in his spiritual abode again. The situation of the descendants of Earth was very bad. The old sects of the immortal realm had sent experts to search for traces of the descendants of Earth. These old sects had been in the immortal realm for many years and naturally had a strong intelligence network. In addition, They were hiring mercenaries to issue related missions. This made the survival of the descendants of Earth very difficult. In the past, the old sects also knew of the existence of the descendants of Earth, but they did not pay attention to them. They thought that the descendants of Earth were hiding every day and would not affect the situation of the immortal realm at all. However, the battle between the descendants of Earth and the Heaven's Incense School made these old sects alert. In addition to Fairy Lawn Yao's instigation, the situation inevitably became more and more tense. Chapter 422. Xiao Lingyu had prepared everything he could. Whether or not he could successfully advance would depend on his luck. Xiao Lingyu had always been very confident in his luck, so he was very determined to charge into the primal chaos soul formation stage. He either smeared the refined materials on his body or swallowed them. Then he placed all the demonic crystals he had brought from the demon realm around himself. Xiao Lingyu spread out his arms and used his mind to control the circulation of his cultivation technique. At the same time, his palms released a suction force, absorbing the energy within the demonic crystals into his body. Almost every moment, thousands of demonic crystals turned to dust due to the loss of energy. If it weren't for the fact that Xiao Lingyu's body had reached the level of a low-grade divine tool, he definitely wouldn't have been able to withstand such a huge amount of energy. Fortunately, Xiao Lingyu had prepared enough demonic crystals before coming to the immortal realm, so he could absorb as much energy as he wanted today. After all the demonic energy entered his body, it was directly transported to his dantian, where it formed a huge vortex next to the primal chaos demonic nascent soul. The primal chaos demonic nascent soul occupied the center of the vortex with its purple-black primal chaos fire, transforming and refining the demonic energy within the vortex. The four-colored halo circulating above the primal chaos demonic nascent soul's head also began to spin rapidly. As long as one was sufficiently prepared, danger generally wouldn't appear at the beginning of the breakthrough. Xiao Lingyu's breakthrough this time was the same. The most crucial moment came when Xiao Lingyu stopped absorbing energy from the outside world. His primal chaos demonic nascent soul and the halo above his head exploded at the same time. At this moment, his dantian was completely unable to contain and suppress the impact of the primal chaos demonic nascent soul and primal chaos fire. This caused Xiao Lingyu's entire body to tremble, and a powerful aura violently surged out of his body. Fortunately, he was in his spiritual abode. Otherwise, there would definitely be a huge commotion. Without any hesitation, Xiao Lingyu took out the five-colored morning origin flower. Then, without any refinement, he directly stuffed it into his mouth and chewed with big mouthfuls like a hungry ghost. This five-colored morning essence flower was a divine item. As the most ideal main ingredient, it could also increase the success rate of Xiao Lingyu's breakthrough this time. The energy contained within the five-colored origin flower was very special. It could gather most forms of energy wherever it flowed. When Xiao Lingyu scattered them all over her body, the chaos magic released by the chaos demon nascent soul was completely absorbed. Xiao Lingyu's aura also began to weaken. Then, the energy of the five-colored origin flower began to circulate according to the 9 revolutions chaos formula. It flowed towards Xiao Lingyu's dantian and gradually formed a new chaos demon nascent soul. As long as this new chaos demon nascent soul was formed without any hindrance and stabilized, Xiao Lingyu would be halfway through this attack. Perhaps Xiao Lingyu had made thorough preparations, and the materials he had prepared were all of the finest quality. Perhaps the heavens were looking out for him, but the new chaos demon nascent soul was quickly formed. There were 5 flower buds of different shapes and colors. They hovered above the chaos demon nascent soul's head and shone with a mystical light. At this moment, Xiao Lingyu took a deep breath and began to familiarize herself with this new chaos demon nascent soul. At the same time, she began to chant a spell. These spell chants were also recorded in the 9 revolutions chaos formula. It was said that through constant chanting, one would be able to comprehend the chaos magic within the spell chants, thereby allowing one's soul to make a breakthrough. If Xiaoling Yu couldn't comprehend the chaos magic within the spell chants, then most of his previous efforts would have been in vain. If his soul realm didn't improve, it would be impossible for him to grasp the power of an early-stage chaos soul formation stage cultivator with a mere late-stage immortal monarch cultivation base. The new chaos demon nascent soul had just been formed and was still in a sealed state. Before it awakened, Xiaoling Yu had to comprehend the chaos magic within the spell chants. Otherwise, the new chaos demon nascent soul would explode, and Xiaoling Yu would be done for. Unfortunately, the chaos magic within the spell chants could only be comprehended by a chaos nascent soul that was familiar with the fifth revolution of the 9 revolutions chaos formula. That was why Xiaoling Yu didn't try to comprehend it before attempting to break through. If Xiaoling Yu didn't have this understanding, then with all of his preparations, he would almost certainly be able to break through to the primal chaos soul formation stage. It was also because of this understanding that he only had a 60% success rate after putting in so much effort. What made Xiaoling Yu depressed was that this spell chant only had syllables and no characters. He couldn't even understand the surface meaning. So how could he comprehend the chaos magic within it? However, there was definitely nothing wrong with this technique. So Xiaoling Yu persisted in reciting it patiently. At first, it didn't have any effect at all. However, as time passed, and he recited it more and more times, it was as if an all-encompassing scene of the evolution of heaven and earth appeared in front of his eyes. Xiaoling Yu knew that his recitation was effective, so he continued to recite it while carefully comprehending it. Unfortunately, Xiaoling Yu's many years of cultivation had been like a hot knife through butter. His progress was extremely fast, and he rarely had the experience of comprehending the chaos magic. This made it so that he couldn't see through these hazy things at all. He also didn't have the experience to speculate or imagine. The new chaos demonic nascent soul couldn't be sealed forever. Xiaoling Yu naturally had less and less time, so he couldn't help but become more and more anxious. Sometimes it wasn't a good thing to progress too quickly. Many older cultivators would teach their disciples that they couldn't rush to progress. They had to do it step by step. Although it was slow, it was stable. If they progressed too quickly, they would naturally have less time to comprehend each realm. This was very disadvantageous to their future development. It wasn't that Xiaoling Yu didn't understand this principle in the past. However, he had no choice but to progress in his cultivation most of the time. He didn't regret his rapid progress, but now he had a taste of the bitter consequences. Under normal circumstances, for someone like Xiaoling Yu who had only cultivated for a few years to reach his current level, there was almost no need to talk about comprehending the mysteries and principles. Therefore, it was impossible for him to comprehend the principles of heaven and earth contained in the chaotic scenes before him in a short period of time. However, he wouldn't give up just because of this. He still persisted in chanting those incantations. However, after an unknown amount of time, he finally sensed that his chaos demonic nascent soul was showing signs of awakening. However, he didn't have any clue about the chaos magic. Just as he was in despair, he didn't know if it was because he stopped chanting or because of other reasons, but the grayish-black metal piece that was originally hidden in his sea of consciousness suddenly trembled and made a strange sound. The sound was similar to the syllables of the incantation that Xiaoling Yu had just chanted. However, it was able to reverberate in the depths of Xiaoling Yu's soul. Groups of extremely clear scenes were presented and engraved in the depths of Xiaoling Yu's soul consciousness. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu could clearly feel that his soul realm was rapidly improving. It was indeed not a good thing for one's cultivation to progress too quickly. However, it depended on whether one had the strength and courage to seek opportunities while improving. As long as one's opportunities were good, one could obtain something that others couldn't obtain. This could also make up for the lack of comprehension of the chaos magic. The reason why this grayish-black iron piece had sunk into Xiaoling Yu's sea of consciousness and not someone else's wasn't it his lucky chance? Wasn't it one of his abilities? With the help of the grayish-black metal piece, although Xiaoling Yu was still a little confused about the chaos magic, his soul realm had improved. This was enough. Perhaps it was because he didn't rely on his own comprehension this time. Shaolin Yu's soul realm stopped improving after reaching the mid-stage of the immortal emperor realm. This realm was enough for him to control the new chaos demonic nascent soul. At this point, Shaolin Yu was already in the early stage of the chaotic divine transformation stage. Shaolin Yu relaxed. After secretly thanking himself for being lucky, he began to stabilize his state and at the same time sort out everything that had happened before. After coming out of seclusion through Anya's calculations, he learned that this seclusion only took a few hundred years. After sending a message to Zhongji, Shaolin Yu learned that the current situation of the descendants of Earth wasn't much different from a few hundred years ago. Shaolin Yu was slightly relieved. However, Qin Xian told Shaolin Yu that the Nanhua immortal sect situation wasn't as good as before. After these years of adjustment, the Nanhua immortal sect had gradually recovered from the heavy losses in the godly Mausoleum continent. The Qin guards began to pressure Qin Pingzi again. Anyway, it was still the same as the godly Mausoleum continent. Qin Pingzi's cultivators would create some small conflicts and then expand the situation. Then, they would take the opportunity to suppress Qin Pingzi's lineage. While lowering Qin Pingzi's prestige, the Qin Guard's reputation and strength would increase. However, although the Qin Guard's plan was ingenious, they didn't succeed in the godly Mausoleum continent last time. This time, nothing unexpected happened. But no matter what, Qin Pingzi definitely wouldn't give up his position. In the end, everything still had to resort to force. In other words, the Qin Guards wanted to find an excuse to make a move on Qin Pingzi's lineage. However, they wouldn't cause too much of commotion. Originally, this had nothing to do with Qin Xian because she had already stated that she wouldn't fight for the position of sect master. However, Qin Xian suddenly stood out and said that the position of sect master was the most important position in the Nanhua immortal sect. Only the strongest person could sit on it. Therefore, she proposed to have a competition between all the emperors who wanted the position of sect master. The strongest person would be the new sect master of the Nanhua immortal sect. Qin guards and Qin Pingzi naturally didn't agree with this proposal. However, before they could say anything, Qin Xian threatened first. Whoever stands out to reject this proposal first, I will stand against him. Qin Xian didn't have any emperors under her, but she herself was a very powerful force. If she remained neutral, Qin Pingzi and Qin guards would be evenly matched. However, if she stood on either side, it would tilt the power of the two sides. Therefore, Qin Pingzi and Qin guards didn't dare to reject her proposal. However, they didn't agree either. This matter was put aside. Chapter 423. Why? Do you think I can't be the sect master? Qin Xian asked with a smile. That's not it. Shaolin Yu shook his head. Actually, I'm not doing this for the sect master position. I just don't want the Nanhua immortal sect to suffer any more losses. Although everyone would try their best to restrain themselves and not expand the scale of the competition and implicate too many people, there would still be monarch-level experts who would lose their lives every time. What's the point of letting your loved ones suffer and your enemies rejoice? Wouldn't it be better for everyone to compete to determine the sect master? Qin Xian explained. It's such an important competition. If they really get into a fight, they might lose their lives. Shaolin Yu said disapprovingly. Haha, if they really agreed to the competition, the only ones who would sign up would probably be senior brother Qing Wei and senior brother Qing Ping. Since they want to compete, why drag others into it? The two of them can just have a good fight and decide who's better. Qin Xian said with a smile. Shaolin Yu thought about it and agreed. Other than himself and Qin Xian, the monarch-level cultivators in the Nanhua immortal sect were either from Qing Wei or Qin Pingzi's faction. These two factions were led by the two of them, respectively. If there was a competition, it would definitely be between the two of them. If this can be formed into a system, over time, our Nanhua immortal sect's factions will gradually disappear and the Nanhua immortal sect will be united. This is also beneficial to the sect's long-term development. Qin Xian added. but the two of them have to agree first. Xiao Yu seemed to be worried. For some reason, Qing Wei and Qing Pingzi didn't agree to Qing Xian's suggestion. They just put this matter aside, and Qing Wei stopped attacking Qing Pingzi's faction. Xiao Yu had no intention of fighting for the position of sect master, so she didn't care much about it. After staying in the pavilion for another 2 months, she suddenly received a message from Zhongzhi and left the Nanhua Immortal School for the East Royal City. After meeting with Zhongzhi for less than 15 minutes, Xiao Yu left the East Imperial City and sent a message to Qing Xian. She then entered the teleportation array and left the East Imperial Continent. More than 400 years ago, a group of Earth descendants had been surrounded by celestial world experts several times their number. After receiving the news, Elder Qi had gone to reinforce and rescue them. However, Elder Qi had not returned to this day. Zhongzhi felt that this matter was a little strange. After hesitating for a long time, he decided to tell Xiao Yu and asked Xiao Yu to go and take a look at the situation. Xiao Yu was naturally duty-bound to do so. Therefore, before leaving, he sent a message to Qing Xian and asked Qing Xian to help take care of Anya. He also said that he would be back soon. After continuously teleporting for almost 100 years, Xiao Yu finally stopped at a continent called the Golden Rock Continent. After exiting the teleportation array, he sent a message to Elder Qi. However, he didn't receive a reply after waiting for 2 hours. According to Zhongzhi, Elder Qi said before leaving that he was going to the Golden Rock Continent to rescue the group of Earth descendants. Xiao Yu couldn't be sure if Elder Qi and the group of Earth descendants were still in the Golden Rock Continent. However, he could only start investigating from here. Anyway, something must have happened to Elder Qi. Otherwise, Elder Qi would have sent back a message. After Xiao Yu entered the Golden Rock City, although he used a secret method to find the Bao organization's branch, the branch was now empty. He didn't stay in the Golden Rock Continent for too long. Instead, he searched for the people of the Bao organization's branch in a few immortal continents near the Golden Rock Continent. Although he found a few people in charge of the branch, they didn't know about Elder Qi and the group of Earth descendants. Elder Qi also didn't look for them in recent years. Xiao Yu had no choice but to return to the Golden Rock Continent. First, he used his identity as a member of the Nanhua Immortal Sect to meet the city lord of the Golden Rock City. After he still didn't get any useful information, he went to the most powerful sect in the Golden Rock Continent. This sect wasn't very powerful. There was only one early-stage martial emperor in the entire sect. However, this early-stage martial emperor was already the most powerful cultivator in the Golden Rock Continent. This sect and this early-stage martial emperor naturally didn't dare to offend the experts of the Nanhua Immortal Sect. They answered almost all of Xiao Yu's questions with a very good attitude. Here, Xiao Yu obtained some useful information. According to this early-stage martial emperor, there were indeed signs of a large number of experts fighting in the southwest direction of the Golden Rock Continent a few hundred years ago. He also wanted to check it out at that time. However, it was too late. Other than seeing the traces left behind by the experts, he didn't find anything else. Less than 100 years after that battle, which left only a few traces, this early-stage Spirit Emperor cultivator had felt a few very powerful auras surging from the southwest of the Golden Rock Continent. That place was not close to their sect. Even so, he could still feel those few powerful auras. He guessed that there were at least late-stage Spirit Emperor experts releasing their auras, so he did not dare to go over to check. After receiving this information, Xiao Yu left the sect and flew to the southwest direction of the Golden Rock Continent. It didn't take long for him to find a battlefield that was still faintly visible even after hundreds of years of erosion. Then, he carefully searched it. A few hundred years had passed. The auras left behind by the experts had long been blown away by the wind. The traces left behind by the experts were also blurred. Xiao Yu didn't have the heaven-defying ability to see the past. It was too difficult for him to find anything here. Back then, the group of Earth descendants must have encountered a strong enemy here and retreated after a big battle. Nearly 100 years later, Elder Qi arrived here. He should have also encountered a strong enemy. However, there was no way to analyze the specific situation of the battle. If Elder Qi won, he would have returned. However, he couldn't conclude that Elder Qi lost just because of this. There are no traces of the battle between the martial emperors here. They most likely fought in the starry sky. After figuring this out, Xiaoling Yu flew towards the vast starry sky. When he reached the clouds, he entered the divine palace. The starry sky was vast. Only with the flying speed of the divine palace could Xiaoling Yu carry out a large-scale search. After searching in the starry sky of the Golden Rock continent for nearly 10 years, Xiaoling Yu saw a planet not far away. It was constantly flashing with strange flowing lights. He steered the divine palace and flew over. After approaching the planet, he exited the divine palace. Then, under the effect of the invisible divine robe, he disappeared without a trace. For hours later, he landed on the planet's surface. He was less than 10,000 kilometers away from the place where the flowing lights were flashing. Quietly moving there, Xiaoling Yu saw more than 100 experts from the immortal world bombarding a circle of light that didn't cover a very large area. There were more than 30 cultivators inside the circle of light. Although the circle of light looked weak, its defensive power was actually very strong. Despite being bombarded by more than 100 experts, it only trembled continuously without showing any signs of breaking. Not wanting to expose his existence too early, Xiaoling Yu didn't use his consciousness to scan the area. However, by sensing the attacking aura of the cultivators, he could determine that more than 30 of them were in the Immortal Emperor stage. The rest of them were in the Immortal Monarch stage. More than 100 people were enough to destroy a large sect in the immortal world that was slightly weaker than the Nanhua Immortal School. As for the level of the cultivators in the Circle of Light, Xiaoling Yu couldn't sense it. However, he found many of them very familiar. The cultivators in the Circle of Light were the descendants of the earth that Elder Qi wanted to rescue. Some of them had participated in the battle against the Heaven Incense School, so Xiaoling Yu recognized them. The people who were being rescued were still in danger. So where was Elder Qi, who came to help? The Circle of Light didn't show any signs of breaking, so Xiaoling Yu continued to observe in secret. However, he soon discovered that although the defensive Circle of Light was sturdy, it definitely wouldn't remain unbroken for hundreds of years if the experts outside were to really attack it with all their might. Moreover, the experts outside didn't attack very fiercely. They all looked like they had plenty of energy left. This kind of surprise attack and encirclement usually focuses on ending the battle quickly so as to avoid being delayed and not give the other party a chance to be rescued. But why are they doing this? Could it be that they're besieging the enemy to attack the reinforcements? Xiaoling Yu was puzzled. No matter what the other party was thinking, Xiaoling Yu couldn't continue to observe. He believed that in the face of absolute strength, any schemes and tricks were just a joke. After searching around invisibly, Xiaoling Yu made sure that there were no Immortal Monarch experts hiding in the surroundings. Only then did he quietly approach the other party's group. A cold light flashed out without any warning, and the head of an Immortal Emperor flew into the air before exploding. The sudden change shocked the group of over 100 experts from the immortal world. At the same time, they were stunned. Before they could regain their senses, the cold light flashed again. Another immortal emperor was cut in half on the spot, and his immortal nascent soul couldn't escape in time. Everyone retreat. There's someone hiding here. After hearing the warning, the group of over 100 people quickly retreated to the left and instantly released their auras at the same time, forming a defensive circle of light. Just as these people were all staring outside in fear, the cold light flashed again in the defensive circle they formed together. In less than 2 breaths of time, nearly 10 people had died on the spot. They shouted again and then dodged to the other side. Someone shouted, "Everyone, release your auras with all your might and shake the space." With so many experts releasing their auras at the same time, the space naturally fluctuated. Xiaoling Yu's figure was also revealed. He was dressed in black and had a transparent machete that was as thin as a cicada's wing. Although he had killed countless people, There wasn't a trace of blood on it. Xiao Yu stood in the fluctuating space with a cold expression, like a killing god. Among the descendants of Earth, some of them recognized Xiao Yu, so they withdrew their defensive circle of light and surrounded Xiao Yu. Chapter 424. Got it. You guys go back first. I'll take care of things here, Xiao Yu said without changing her expression. They have a lot of people. Why don't we kill all of them before leaving? An Earth Immortal Emperor said cautiously. If having a lot of people was useful, would they still be so afraid? Xiao Yu first smiled confidently and then said, "You guys should quickly evacuate. They must have deliberately trapped you here to lure us Earth's powerhouses to support you. Maybe in a while, even more powerhouses will appear. If you don't leave now, you will be in danger of being besieged again if I am restrained later." Most of the descendants from Earth were righteous and united. If not, they would have been wiped out long ago. Although they were worried about leaving Xiao Yu here alone, they had seen how powerful Xiao Yu was last time. Therefore, they did not continue to dawdle and immediately landed on the Golden Rock continent together. There were more than 100 people on the other side. They were already intimidated by Xiao Yu and did not dare to chase after her at all. They all stared at Xiao Yu nervously. After this group of descendants from Earth left, Xiao Yu summoned more than 2,000 armored puppets with a thought and surrounded the 100 people on the other side. As soon as the encirclement was formed, the attack had already begun. Xiao Yu did not make a move. Instead, she let the armored puppets continuously attack with divine light. Under such circumstances, if there were no accidents, Xiao Yu would not need to use any other techniques or Dharma treasures to kill the 100 people on the other side in a very short period of time. However, Xiao Yu did not do that. Instead, she made the armored puppets slow down their attacks from time to time. She only suppressed the opponents to the point that they could not raise their heads, but did not break through their defenses. Even if they intended to keep these people alive, the attacks of the armored puppets were too ferocious for them. Moreover, there were too many armored puppets. As they struggled to hold on, some of the weaker immortal monarchs would be shaken to death. The other party could encircle the enemy and attack the reinforcements. Xiao Yu could do the same. Elder Qi was being attacked by Hu Yunzi and Fairy Blue Jade, so he could only fight while running. There was no chance of him winning. Xiao Yu did not know where they had gone, and he had no way of finding them. As such, he had surrounded this group of enemies. He guessed that either Hu Yunzi or Fairy Blue Jade would come to help. Of course, it was also possible that both of them would come at the same time. Even if Xiao Yu couldn't defeat the two celestial venerables, it wouldn't be a problem for her to retreat. Only by seeing Fairy Lan Yao or Hu Yunzi would Xiao Yu be able to understand Elder Qi's current situation. These 100 or so people had also tried to break out of the encirclement, but Xiao Yu had deliberately let one of them go. As for the others, it was impossible for them to break out of the encirclement of so many armored puppets. Even if they could, they would not be able to get past Xiao Yu. Without making Xiao Yu wait for too long, Hu Yunzi, who was wearing a Taoist robe and holding a horsetail whisk, rushed over. His face was cold and gloomy, and he no longer had the slightest trace of an immortal. He had expended a great deal of effort to create these armored puppets, but in the end, it had all gone to someone else. One could imagine his current state of mind. Seeing Fairy Blue Jade arrive, Xiao Yu felt a bit relieved at first, but then he became a bit worried. Today, without that old bastard Qi, let's see what else you can do. As Hu Yunzi spoke, he swung the horsetail whisk in his hand. Countless silver threads shot out in a straight line. Xiao Yu's aura suddenly surged, and a ring of purplish-black flames enveloped his body. At the same time, the silver moon broken blade appeared in his hand. The silver threads were also divine tools, so they did not fear the purplish-black chaotic true fire for a short period of time. As a result, they directly pierced through and firmly trapped Xiao Yu. However, in the next moment, the silver moon broken blade severed the silver threads, and Xiao Yu regained her freedom. She then used her mind to command the armored puppets to continue attacking with all their might. More than 2,000 rays of divine light shot out at the same time. However, they were not aimed at Hu Yunzi. Instead, they were aimed at the less than 50 celestial realm cultivators that they had surrounded. With just a single wave of divine light, the defensive barrier that these exhausted cultivators had set up exploded. All of the immortal monarchs were killed on the spot, and even the immortal emperors were coughing up blood from their wounds. Hu Yunzi's expression became even more unsightly, but there was a hint of caution between his brows. This was because the moment the silver threads had bound the other party, they had already tightened with all their might. If it had been an ordinary cultivator, the other party's body would have already been sliced into countless pieces by the divine tool-grade threads. However, not only had the silver threads not strangled the other party to death, they had not even been able to break through the other party's defenses. This made Hu Yunzi realize that the other party's physical quality had reached a level that he did not dare to believe. Just based on this point alone, he had no choice but to treat them with caution. You and Fairy Blue Jade are both celestial monarchs, peak existences in the three realms. How can you have a nerve to fight two of us? Xiaoling Yu asked disdainfully after dispelling the attack of the silver threads. The ancestors left a message that the remnants of Earth cannot be left alive. Why would I need to talk about one or two of you when dealing with you? Hu Yunzi replied indifferently. Why are you so stubborn about the grudges of ancient times? Can you be sure that in the God realm, your ancestors and the ancient powerhouses of Earth are not drinking and chatting harmoniously? Although Xiaoling Yu seemed to be arguing with the other party, the attacks of the 2,000 armored puppets were still ferocious. Originally, we had no intention of completely wiping out the remnants of Earth, but this time, you were too presumptuous. You actually dared to attack the Heaven's Incense School. You're courting death, so you can't blame anyone else, Hu Yunzi said with a cold smile. Don't be so despicable. Right now, you're strong, while the descendants of Earth are weak because of their small numbers. However, it's still hard to say who will have the last laugh. The descendants of Earth are not lambs that you can slaughter at will. You can be high and mighty and openly abuse your power in the immortal realm. Why should we, the descendants of Earth, have to give in to your whims and hide every day? Xiaoling Yu said angrily. The immortal realm is so vast and boundless. There are so many immortals that it's impossible to count them all. The remnants of Earth only have a few 100,000 people in the immortal realm. You're really like a grain in the ocean. You're delusional enough to think that you can contend against the world like you did in ancient times. How foolish and arrogant, Hu Yunzi said disdainfully. The reason Hu Yunzi was wasting words with Xiaoling Yu was because his cultivation level was higher. If you want to get a closer look at Xiaoling Yu's true strength. Just now, Xiaoling Yu had easily neutralized his attack, so he didn't dare act rashly. Xiaoling Yu had only said so much to get information out of Hu Yunzi. He didn't really want to argue with Hu Yunzi about some major principles. I think that only you so-called large sects have some opinions about the descendants of Earth. There aren't many ordinary immortals in the immortal realm who are as tyrannical as you. Xiaoling Yu first responded, then continued. Moreover, at least we descendants of Earth now have an immortal sovereign like Elder Qi. If you want to kill us, you have to consider the consequences. Huh? Hu Yunzi laughed loudly. That old bastard won't be able to protect you. He can't even protect himself right now. Although he managed to escape under the combined attacks of Fairy Lan Yao and I, he probably won't be able to live for much longer. This was what Xiaoling Yu wanted to hear, but it wasn't good news. Could it be that immortal sovereigns also like to brag? No matter what, Elder Qi is still an immortal sovereign. Even if he was attacked by two immortal sovereigns, even if he couldn't win, it shouldn't be a problem for him to escape. How could he have ended up in such a miserable state? Xiaoling Yu replied with a look of disbelief. Whether you believe it or not, that's your business. In any case, that's the truth, Hu Yunzi said calmly. Xiaoling Yu felt that Hu Yunzi shouldn't be lying or boasting. If Elder Qi was in good condition now, he would have returned to the East Imperial continent long ago. Perhaps he really was seriously injured and was recuperating in some hidden place. However, Xiaoling Yu could already confirm one thing. Elder Qi was at least still alive. As long as he was still alive, even if he was seriously injured, there was a way to heal him. Xiaoling Yu already knew what she wanted to know, and Hu Yunzi's probing of Xiaoling Yu had also reached its limit. The two didn't say much. After looking at each other, they attacked each other at the same time. Hu Yunzi swept his horsetail whisk over while forming seals with his hands. Xiaoling Yu was bathed in the primal chaos true fire. He withstood the attacks of his silver threads and wanted to get closer to Hu Yunzi. At the same time, the primal chaos devil seal whizzed over. Hu Yunzi's speed was extremely fast. If he wanted to dodge, Xiaoling Yu couldn't catch up at all. Naturally, he couldn't engage in close combat with Hu Yunzi. He couldn't use the advantage of his high-quality body and the incomparably sharp silver moon broken saber. Hu Yunzi dodged and attacked at the same time. Because he was fast and had a high cultivation level, he had the initiative. However, even if his attacks could lock onto Xiaoling Yu and penetrate the primal chaos true fire and hit Xiaoling Yu's body, they couldn't pose an effective threat. As such, the two of them couldn't do anything to each other. They were in a stalemate, and it looked like they were evenly matched. However, the opposing immortal emperors were in imminent danger under the encirclement of more than 2,000 armored puppets. There were constantly people getting injured, and there were also people dying from time to time. Most of these immortal emperors were experts from Hu Yunzi's heavenly Dao sect. There were also some who were summoned by Hu Yunzi. However, they were probably going to lose their lives here. Fairy Lan Yao once said that in the eyes of celestial supremacy, everyone below the celestial supremacy was an ant. Actually, Hu Yunzi thought the same. Even though the immortal emperors died one after another, Hu Yunzi had no intention of helping. Xiaoling Yu originally wanted to use the phaseless giant demon art to increase his strength and then fight Hu Yunzi. However, after thinking about it, he gave up. Even if he used the phaseless giant demon art, his speed might not be able to catch up to Hu Yunzi. As long as he couldn't catch up to Hu Yunzi, he still wouldn't be able to do anything to this celestial supremacy. Most importantly, using the phaseless giant demon art consumed a lot of energy. If he couldn't win, he would be in danger. Chapter 425. Although he couldn't do anything to Hu Yunzi, he had killed so many immortal emperor experts in front of that old man. It was a slap to the old man's face, and it was something to be proud of. For someone below the immortal supremacy to achieve such results, it would definitely shock all the experts in the immortal world. Hu Yunzi didn't want to let Xiaoling Yu go, but his speed was slower than Shinfu's. This kid's progress is so fast. I can't let him live. Hu Yunzi looked in the direction Shun Fu flew, and the killing intent in his eyes was hard to hide. Xiaoling Yu landed on the Golden Rock continent and then took the teleportation array to return to the East Imperial continent. Elder Qi should be recuperating, and Xiaoling Yu couldn't find him at all. Instead of searching blindly, it was better to return to the East Imperial continent and wait for news. The return trip also took nearly 100 years. After walking out of the teleportation array, Xiaoling Yu went to the East Imperial continent first. After all, the East Imperial continent was right next to the teleportation array. It wouldn't take much time to enter the city first. However, what Xiaoling Yu didn't expect was that Elder Qi already had a branch in the East Imperial continent. Old Qi, I heard from Hu Yunzi that you were heavily injured by the combined attacks of him and Fairy Lan Yao. Is that true? Xiaoling Yu saw that Elder Qi's complexion wasn't good, so he asked with concern. He definitely didn't tell you that Fairy Lan Yao was almost killed. Elder Qi nodded first and then replied. No wonder only Hu Yunzi rushed over. It turns out that Elder Qi had seriously injured Fairy Lan Yao, Xiaoling Yu said. The two of them want my life, so I can only fight with my life. Although I'm old, if I really fight with my life, they won't have an easy time. Elder Qi smiled bitterly and continued. However, although Fairy Lan Yao's injuries are serious, she can recover as long as she recuperates. But at this point, Elder Qi smiled bitterly and shook his head. What's wrong? Xiao Yu was a little nervous because he saw that Zhongji's face was a little sad. Although I've stabilized my injuries, I don't think I have much time left to live. Fairy Blue Jade did not hesitate to take my attack head-on. She sent a life-severing god talisman into my body, using her heavy injuries to exchange for my death. If it weren't for the fact that Hu Yunzi was present at the time, she would definitely have died on the spot after taking my attack head-on, Elder Qi said helplessly. Fairy Lan Yao only dared to fight 1 against 2, and both of them were at the same cultivation level. Is there a way to break the life-ending talisman? Xiao Yu asked. There's no solution. Elder Qi shook his head. The immortal realm is vast and has countless treasures. Although the talisman is powerful, I think there should be a solution. Xiao Yu was hopeful. There's a way to resolve it, but that method is practically impossible in the immortal world, Zhongji said bitterly. Tell me about it. Xiao Yu was unwilling to give up. Not only does the life-ending talisman rapidly consume a cultivator's life essence energy, it can also seal off all the channels that cultivators use to replenish their life essence energy. Moreover, the power of the life-ending talisman is hidden. The divine power of a celestial sovereign is unable to refine or expel it. Moreover, as long as a cultivator circulates their cultivation or does something big, the power of the talisman will increase. Thus, in the immortal world, the life-ending talisman is unbreakable unless an expert with a cultivation level higher than that of a celestial sovereign acts. Elder Qi first explained, then said, however, it said that there is an item in the immortal world that can remove the life-ending talisman, and that is the stamen of the yin-yang flower. However, the yin-yang flower has long been extinct in the immortal world. Even if it still exists in the immortal world, it must be hidden in a hidden place. It's impossible to find it in a short period of time. Xiao Yu immediately frowned when he heard this. Not only had he never seen the yin-yang flower, he had never even heard of it. We still have to try our best to find it. As long as we don't reach the end, we can't give up so easily. Xiao Yu pulled himself together and said, the spies have already started to act. Zhong Jing replied. How long can Elder Qi last? Xiao Yu asked with concern. If I continue to recuperate, I can last for 10,000 years. However, once I fight with someone, I'll probably... Elder Qi smiled bitterly. Then Elder Qi, just recuperate. If you have to face a celestial sovereign in the future, I'll do it. Xiao Yu said very seriously. It seems that you've improved a lot after your seclusion this time. It's fortunate that a junior like you caught up. Otherwise, if I died, we descendants of Earth would have no hope of turning the tables. Elder Qi said with satisfaction. Since Elder Qi was in such a state, Xiao Yu naturally couldn't rush back to the Nanhua immortal sect. Right now, the experts of Earth descendants were gathering in the East Imperial continent. Xiao Yu also needed to greet them and familiarize himself with them. However, Xiao Yu had only stayed in the East Imperial continent for less than half a year before he received a message from Anya, asking him to rush back as soon as he received a message. Xiao Yu guessed that something big had happened. Therefore, he didn't waste any time. After greeting Elder Qi and Zhong Jing, he rushed back to the Nanhua Immortal Sect's encampment at full speed. After 4 hours, Xiao Yu had already arrived at the entrance of the Nanhua Immortal Sect's encampment. However, he realized that the Nanhua Immortal Sect protecting array had already been activated. The entire mountain was enveloped by the array, blocking him outside. Xiao Yu guessed that this wasn't targeted at him. Instead, something big had happened in the Nanhua Immortal Sect, and they didn't want outsiders to know about it. Therefore, they activated the sect protecting array to cover it up. Xiao Yu hadn't been in the Nanhua Immortal Sect for a long time. Although he had the treatment of an immortal emperor, he didn't have any real power. He also didn't know much about the Nanhua Immortal Sect. For example, he didn't know how to enter and exit this sect protecting array easily. However, Anya's message was rather urgent. Xiao Yu didn't have the patience to wait any longer. Therefore, he immediately dived into the array. With the primal chaos true fire covering his entire body, The array's attacks were almost useless against him. Moreover, with the Yellow Emperor's bloodline, he could see through the array's illusions. Therefore, he was able to pass through the array. The interior of the Nanhua immortal sect's encampment wasn't in a mess. There were also no traces of a huge battle. However, there were many cultivators flying around in a hurry. Everyone had a nervous expression as though they were facing a great enemy. Xiaolingyu didn't care about the ordinary disciples. He directly rushed to his pavilion. His pavilion didn't have any commotion. However, the courtyard next to it was surrounded by many Nanhua immortal sect experts. The courtyard next to it was Qing Xian's residence in the Nanhua immortal sect's encampment. Xiaolingyu was displeased to see this. He walked into the group of cultivators and saw Anya. However, he didn't see Qing Xian. Anya was standing beside a cultivator who looked to be in his 50s. She frowned as she stared at the courtyard in front of her. Xiaolingyu knew that the cultivator beside Anya was Qing Wei. He looked around again, but didn't see Qing Pingzi. Senior Marshal Brother Qing Wei. Why are they surrounding Senior Marshal's sister Qing Xian's residence? Xiaolingyu tried his best to be polite when he saw that Anya was fine. They said that Senior Marshal's sister Qing Xian committed a crime of betrayal and wanted to expel Senior Marshal's sister Qing Xian from the Nanhua immortal sect. Senior Marshal's sister Qing Xian refused, so they surrounded the place. They also said that if Senior Marshal's sister Qing Xian didn't leave within 3 days, then... Anya glanced at Qing Wei. Then what? Xiaolingyu frowned and asked. Then we'll treat it as an outsider who trespassed in the Nanhua immortal sect's encampment. We'll expel her by force and kill anyone who resists, Anya said in a low voice. Xiaolingyu narrowed his eyes and asked Qing Wei, Senior Marshal Brother Qing Wei, what crime did Senior Marshal's sister Qing Xian commit? Qing Wei was in charge of the sect's discipline and had the right to judge the crimes of the sect's disciples. According to the Nanhua immortal sect's rules, he could even ask the sect master. Qing Wei smiled and said, Junior Marshal Brother Xiao, you should know about the godly mausoleum continent, right? Xiaolingyu asked suspiciously, what is it? Qing Wei explained, on the godly mausoleum continent, a large number of experts from our Nanhua immortal sect and Fenglong sect fought at the Jade Light Lake. As our commander, Qing Xian secretly colluded with Fenglong sect's experts. Junior Marshal Brother, don't you think this is a crime of betrayal? Our law enforcement hall has been investigating this matter and recently confirmed it. When the law enforcement hall questioned Qing Xian, she didn't deny it. Therefore, Senior Marshal Brother Qing Pingzi, I reported it to the sect master. Senior Marshal Brother Qing Pingzi agreed with me and expelled Junior Marshal Sister Qing Xian from the sect as punishment. Xiaolingyu was surprised. Xiaolingyu also knew about this matter, but at that time, it was Qing Wei who caused the trouble. Why did the crime fall on Qing Xian's head? Obviously, Qing Wei took advantage of the fact that he was in charge of the sect's discipline to purposely punish Qing Xian. Qing Pingzi, that old fox, probably also felt that Qing Xian was an unstable factor, so he didn't care about it. Moreover, when Qing Xian was in charge of the battle against Fenglong sect, she caused all the experts sent by the sect to die. She must be responsible for those who died. If it weren't for her contributions to the sect, it wouldn't be as simple as expelling her. Qing Wei added, and then patted Xiaolingyu on the shoulder, saying, I know that Junior Marshal Brother Xiao and Qing Xian have a good relationship. Even before Anya came, there were rumors in the sect about you. However, I believe that Junior Marshal Brother Xiao and Qing Xian are innocent, and I believe that Junior Marshal Brother Xiao did not collude with experts from other sects on the Tomb Continent with Qing Xian. Now, Junior Marshal Brother Xiao should support the sect's punishment on Qing Xian to prove yourself. While speaking, Qing Wei kept glancing at Anya, as if he didn't dare to say more. Xiaolingyu knew that Qing Wei said this deliberately. He just wanted him to take Anya's feelings into consideration and not speak for Qing Xian. I have to ask Senior Marshal Brother Sect Leader about this. Xiaolingyu responded and was about to leave with Anya. Senior Marshal Brother Sect Leader is in closed-door cultivation recently. He said that he wants to try to break through to the immortal venerable realm. Before he went into closed-door cultivation, he told us not to disturb him unless it was a matter of life and death for the Nanhua immortal sect. Junior martial brother, you'd better not go, Qing Wei said. Chapter 426. I'll go in and take a look. Xiao Lingyu was about to enter the courtyard again. Junior brother Xiao, Qing Wei said coldly. Qing Xian committed the crime of betraying the sect. Junior brother, it's better for you to stay away from her. Don't make things difficult for me. Xiao Lingyu stopped and turned around. Qing Wei, it's your business to fight with Qing Pingzi. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't go overboard. Junior brother Xiao, are you teaching me a lesson? Qing Wei narrowed his eyes. The experts from Qing Wei's lineage who were surrounding the courtyard all looked over unkindly. It's not a lesson. It's a reminder, Xiao Lingyu replied calmly. Then, Xiao Lingyu brought Anya to the courtyard, but was stopped by a few immortal emperors from Qing Wei's lineage. Junior brother Xiao, why are you so nervous about Qing Xian? Are you having an affair with her, or are you colluding with experts from other sects with her? Qing Wei threatened. Move aside. Xiao Lingyu ignored Qing Wei and shouted at the immortal emperors in front of him. The immortal emperors didn't back off and still stood in front of him with cold expressions. Oomph. Xiao Lingyu snorted again and waved his arm in front of him. A powerful aura blasted away the immortal emperors around him. Then, he continued to move forward. You're asking for death. Qing Wei's expression was extremely ugly. He immediately rushed forward and slapped Xiao Lingyu's back. Qing Wei didn't know what level Xiao Lingyu was at now. He only knew that Xiao Lingyu was comparable to an emperor, but he was definitely no match for him. When Qing Wei's palm came, Xiao Lingyu suddenly turned around and similarly waved his palm to meet it. Bang! When the two palms collided, an earth-shattering explosion was heard. The entire Nanhua immortal sect's encampment shook a few times. Qing Wei felt a huge force enter his body through his arm. Then he flew out, and the blood in his body surged. On the other hand, Xiao Lingyu still had a cold expression on his face, but his body did not move at all. The Qing Guard were pushed back by Xiao Lingyu's palm strike. The other experts from the Qing Guard's faction naturally rushed forward. However, at this moment, a circle of purplish-black flames suddenly appeared on Xiao Lingyu's body. All the experts felt a dangerous aura, so they stopped halfway. Cough! Cough! Qing Wei coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood. The indifference and contempt in his expression had disappeared, replaced by deep astonishment and shock. No matter what, Qing Wei, was an expert at the peak of the late stage of the martial monarch realm. However, the other party was able to injure him with just one palm strike. What level was the other party at? Qing Wei, help me pass a message to that old fox. The position of sect master of Nanhua Immortal School no longer belongs to him. Of course, it won't belong to you either. With that, Xiao Lingyu turned around and entered the small courtyard. As soon as he entered the courtyard, Xiao Lingyu saw Qing Xian. She must have been paying attention to the situation outside just now. Junior brother Xiao, who should the position of sect master belong to? Qing Xian asked as soon as she came up. Of course it's you, Xiao Lingyu said with a smile. What if they don't want to? Qing Xian asked again. They don't have the right to refuse or resist, Xiao Lingyu said confidently. Qing Xian did not say anything else. She only looked at Xiao Lingyu. Some feelings that could not be suppressed and appeared in her almond-shaped eyes. Not to mention Inya, who was meticulous and meticulous. Even Xiao Lingyu could clearly sense that something was amiss at this moment. After 10 minutes, Qing Pingzi and Qing Wei entered the courtyard. Junior brother Xiao, what do you mean by this? Qing Pingzi asked unhappily. Senior brother sect master, aren't you in seclusion to break through to the immortal supremacy realm? Didn't you say that you won't come out unless there's something that concerns the survival of Nanhua Immortal Sect? Xiao Lingyu asked with a smile. Junior brother, you want to remove me from the position of sect master. If I don't come out to take a look, others will really think that you're in charge of Nanhua Immortal Sect, Qing Pingzi said coldly. Since senior brother is out, Let's not beat around the bush. Xiaoling Yu nodded and said, the two of you want to expel senior sister Qing Xian from the sect because you can't accept her suggestion. Both of you are confident that you can defeat your opponent, but you don't want to compete with your real abilities. I don't want to interfere with this stupid fight for the position of sect master, but you've gone overboard this time. Of course, you may not think that it's overboard, but I think it's very overboard. Therefore, I have no choice but to stand up for you. Junior brother, you need to have the ability to stand up for others, Qing Pingzi said. Senior brother Qing Wei has already seen whether I have the ability or not. If senior brother Qing Pingzi wants to try, I'm more than happy to oblige, Xiaoling Yu said fearlessly. Qing Pingzi naturally didn't know Xiaoling Yu's current strength. He only knew a little about Xiaoling Yu's strength before Xiaoling Yu reached the chaotic spirit severing stage. When Qing Wei sent someone to invite Qing Pingzi over, he didn't make it clear. Then let me take a look. Senior brother, since you've brought me into the sect, I'll give you a handicap of 3 moves. Xiaoling Yu added, as soon as Qing Pingzi finished his sentence. Xiaoling Yu wanted Qing Pingzi to lose completely so that he wouldn't dare to have any other thoughts. As for killing Qing Pingzi and Qing Wei, Xiaoling Yu didn't want to do that. The two of them didn't do anything wrong to him. Moreover, killing them was not worth it compared to turning them into his fighters. Arrogant, Qing Pingzi trembled with anger. In the entire immortal realm, who could take 3 moves from him except for immortal supremacies? For the first move, Qing Pingzi only slapped his palm. Xiaoling Yu didn't move at all and allowed the palm to hit his chest. Qing Pingzi knew that Xiaoling Yu's body was tough, so he used almost all of his strength. However, not only did he fail to make Xiaoling Yu move, but his palm also hurt. For the second move, Qing Pingzi formed a seal and drew the power of heaven and earth to turn it into brilliant godly lightning that struck down from the 9 heavens. However, this godly lightning was much weaker than the 5-color godly lightning during the divine core tribulation. When it struck Xiaoling Yu, it didn't do anything except make him feel a little sore and numb. The small courtyard was almost destroyed. The top experts of Nanhua Immortal Sect were watching from all sides. Everyone was shocked by Xiaoling Yu's strength. Xiaoling Yu was so powerful even when he didn't move. If he attacked, Qing Pingzi's old face twitched. His opponent took his attacks without moving, but after 2 moves, he couldn't even scratch his opponent's skin. With so many disciples of the Nanhua Immortal Sect watching, he naturally lost all his face. If Xiaoling Yu took Qing Pingzi's 3rd move, Qing Pingzi's prestige would be greatly reduced. Even without Xiaoling Yu's coercion, he wouldn't be able to keep his position as sect master. For the 3rd move, Qing Pingzi decided not to hold back at all. After he shouted, his aura surged until it reached the peak of the late-stage monarch realm. Then, he poured all of his power into a golden godly saber and slashed down from the sky. Qing Pingzi believed that even if Xiaoling Yu's body was as strong as a godly artifact, he would be severely injured if he didn't die. But to Qing Pingzi's surprise, Xiaoling Yu disappeared as soon as he slashed down. His immortal senses lock on Xiaoling Yu disappeared at the same time. After losing his target, Qing Pingzi was shocked. He thought that Xiaoling Yu might sneak up on him and attack him from behind. So, he slashed his saber around himself. 3 moves are over. But a moment later, Xiaoling Yu appeared again, but he was still at the same spot. Qing Pingzi was even more annoyed that he was fooled, but he saw another powerful move from Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu could disappear under Qing Pingzi's mental lock. Qing Pingzi felt that if Xiaoling Yu used this to attack him, he would be hit as well. Now I'm going to attack. Xiaoling Yu smiled, and a transparent saber appeared in his hand. Junior brother, your defense is impenetrable. I'm sure your attack is even more powerful. I'm impressed. There's no need for us to compete. Qing Pingzi smiled bitterly. Then, senior brother, are you willing to give up your position? Xiaoling Yu spun the transparent saber in his hand and asked, Haha, although I'm not willing, I have no choice. Qing Pingzi smiled knowingly. Senior brother Qing Wei, do you have any other opinions? Xiaoling Yu looked at Qing Wei, who was not far away. I only hope that junior brother can let bygones be bygones. Qingwei thought for a while and said helplessly, Haha, as long as everyone listens to the new sect master, Qing Xian, and works with the Nanhua immortal sect wholeheartedly, we can let bygones be bygones. Xiaoling Yu nodded and smiled. Then, Qingwei and Qing Pingzi left with their people. They closed the sect protecting array and reopened the mountain gate. As for handing over the position of sect master, they naturally had to make some preparations. As long as Xiaoling Yu was around, this matter could not be changed. Although Xiaoling Yu still needed to oversee the descendants of Earth, Xiaoling Yu had to accompany Anya for a few days since he was back. After a round of lovemaking, Anya lay in Xiaoling Yu's arms and drew circles on his chest with her finger while saying, Actually, you can also take the position of sect master. I have other things to do, more than being the sect master. Xiaoling Yu caressed Anya's soft shoulder and said helplessly. Anya paused for a while and pressed her blushing face tightly against Xiaoling Yu's chest. She said, Do you have any thoughts about Sister Qing Xian? Xiaoling Yu pretended to be confused and asked, In what way? Stop pretending. I don't believe that you don't know her feelings. And you pinched the soft flesh on Xiaoling Yu's waist and rebuked, Her cultivation is high, but her temperament and appearance are superior. Haven't you ever been tempted? Xiaoling Yu pressed Anya under him again. He pinched Anya's breast with one hand and rubbed Anya's, but with the other. He said, I can't take you alone. How would I dare to think about anything else? Chapter 427. Not long after, the abdication ceremony for the sect master position was held in the encampment of Nanhua Immortal Sect. The former sect master, Qing Pingzi, announced that Qing Xian would be the new sect master of Nanhua Immortal Sect in front of countless Nanhua disciples and handed over the high-grade defensive divine artifact, Nanhua Bowl, to Qing Xian. All of this was done under the watch of Xiaoling Yu. Previously, when Xiaoling Yu fought against Qing Wei and Qing Pingzi, he had the absolute advantage. At that time, there were many experts from the Southflower Immortal Sect watching the battle. Now, everyone agreed that this expert who had only joined the Southflower Immortal Sect for a few 100,000 years was the true number one expert of the Southflower Immortal Sect. However, everyone had a question in their mind. Why did this number one expert choose to support Qing Xian instead of taking the sect master position? With this question, everyone started to speculate. In the end, they naturally thought that Xiaoling Yu and Qing Xian must have some secret. In the past, everyone felt that Qing Xian was the number one expert of the sect, and they were familiar with Qing Xian's existence. Therefore, they could accept Qing Xian taking over the sect master position. If Xiaoling Yu really took over the sect master position, many disciples would feel uncomfortable because Xiaoling Yu hadn't truly integrated into the sect yet. Qing Xian and Xiaoling Yu didn't make things difficult for Qing Wei and Qing Pingzi. Even though they had some conflicts in the past, there was no need to be ruthless now that the two had given in. In fact, when Qing Wei brought people to surround Qing Xian's courtyard, Qing Xian didn't need Xiaoling Yu to do anything. After all, she also had 2,000 armored puppets that had been refined long ago. With just these 2,000 armored puppets, Qing Wei couldn't do anything to her. Moreover, her own strength couldn't be underestimated. However, Qing Xian didn't do anything. Instead, he waited for Xiaoling Yu to return and wanted to see Xiaoling Yu's attitude. After Xiaoling Yu returned, Qing Xian was naturally very satisfied, but also very melancholic. Although Qing Xian became the sect master, he still lived beside Xiaoling Yu's pavilion and was still with Anya every day. Xiaoling Yu couldn't stay in Nanhua Immortal Sect forever. Not long after Qing Xian became the sect master, he went to East Imperial City to continue managing the descendants of Earth. Anya knew that Qing was unable to hide her melancholy. She didn't want to say anything, but she couldn't bear and finally asked, Sister Qing Xian, if Anya is your sister, can you tell me if you have feelings? Qing Xian was originally in a daze, but when she heard Anya's question, her face turned red. After pondering for a while, She said, "Sister, don't worry. I'm not a rude person. I won't fight with you." Anya said, "But sister, if you torture yourself like this for a long time, I'm afraid you'll be burdened by your inner demons." However, Qing Xin sighed and said, "Sigh, this is fate. Perhaps after a little more time, this intention will fade." Anya didn't say anything else, and Qing Xin continued to be in a daze. It was unknown whether it was because Fairy Lan Yao had been seriously injured or because Shaolin Yu had attracted the attention of Hu Yunzi, but during this period of time, the powerhouses of the Earth Descendants had not encountered any major attacks. Most of the powerhouses had quietly rushed to the East Imperial Continent or the Immortal World continent near the East Imperial Continent. Although the intelligence organization was trying their best to find the trace of the yin-yang flower, there was still no news. The life essence in Elder Chi's body was weakening all the time. Elder Chi had been very calm, but Shaolin Yu and the other Earth Descendant powerhouses were extremely worried. Nearly 1,000 years had passed, and the intelligence organization hadn't found any information about the yin-yang flower, but they got useful information from the mercenary organization. Just like when Shaolin Yu looked for Anya, Zhongji also spent a large number of immortal crystals to release a mission to find the yin-yang flower in the mercenary organization. Moreover, the requirement of the mission was not to get the yin-yang flower. As long as the location of the yin-yang flower was found, the mission was considered completed. The reward of that mission was very generous. Even the Emperor-level experts would be tempted. Therefore, before the mercenary organization spread this mission, someone had already provided a message that the yin-yang flower might exist on the Yin Prison Continent. The Yin Prison Continent was one of the very special continents in the immortal world. This was because this continent was shrouded in dense Yin Qi all year round. There were no immortal stone veins, nor were there any heavenly materials and earthly treasures that immortals could use. It was completely unlike the continents in the immortal world. Usually, no one would be willing to go there. There were many barren continents in the immortal world, but only the Yin Prison Continent had almost no immortals. It was completely abandoned by the immortals. Shaolin Yu went to the branch of the mercenary organization to ask, but he didn't get any more detailed information, nor did he get any conclusive evidence. In other words, the immortal who provided this information was just speculating or completely talking nonsense. It was not credible. But even so, with the idea that it was better to believe it and have a glimmer of hope, the descendants of Earth all thought that they should go to the Yin Prison Continent and search it carefully. Shaolin Yu also felt that they should go and have a look, but he didn't want too many people to go. However, if there were too few people, they wouldn't be able to search the Yin Prison Continent in a short time. Therefore, after some discussion, Shaolin Yu set off with 20 descendants of Earth at the Immortal Emperor stage. The Yin Prison Continent was not a good place. The dense Yin Qi there could erode the bodies of immortals and pollute their immortal spirit power. Only Emperor-level experts could stay there for a long time without being affected at all. Only Emperor-level experts' immortal senses were not restricted by the Yin Qi. The Yin Prison Continent was not very far from the East Imperial Continent, but it took Shaolin Yu and the other descendants of Earth nearly 1,000 years to teleport nonstop. Although the Yin Prison Continent was a barren land, there was also a teleportation array. However, this teleportation array was rarely used. After exiting the teleportation array, Shaolin Yu and the others were immediately surrounded by layers of Yin Qi. However, they didn't need to defend themselves. They just released a little aura to block the Yin Qi outside their bodies. Everyone, let's split up and search. If you encounter any danger, immediately send a message. Along the way, he had said what he needed to say. Naturally, there was no need to waste time on the Yin Prison Continent. After Shaolin Yu waved his hand, everyone flew in all directions with the teleportation array as the center. Shaolin Yu also chose a direction and carefully searched with his mind while flying forward. At first, it was very peaceful. Although they didn't find any trace of the yin-yang flower, they didn't encounter any danger. However, after a few months, the powerhouses of the descendants of Earth were ambushed again and again. Every time, the powerhouses of the descendants of Earth were ambushed. Their soul jade tablets would shatter as soon as they sent out a request for help. As the current leader of the Earth's Descendants organization, Xiaoling Yu naturally had the soul imprint of every descendant of Earth. When these descendants of Earth died, Xiaoling Yu would know immediately. Faced with such a situation, Xiaoling Yu didn't hesitate to send a message to everyone, asking them to come to his location. Even so, only 10 people managed to make it there. Furthermore, 3 of them were heavily injured. They hadn't found the yin-yang flower yet, but they had already suffered such great losses. Xiaoling Yu's face was naturally gloomy to the extreme. Xiaoling Yu was the only descendant of Earth who hadn't been attacked on this trip. From the descriptions of the 10 people who rushed over, he learned that the ones who attacked them weren't existences from the Yin prison continent, but other experts from the immortal world. It's obvious that this is a conspiracy. The other party must have deliberately said that there was a yin-yang flower here. They must have set up an ambush here and waited for us to arrive before attacking us, Xiaoling Yu said with narrowed eyes. As for who the other party was, there was no need to guess. It must be Hu Yunzi and Lan Yao Fairy. Only they knew that Elder Qi needed the yin-yang flower. Fortunately, we didn't come with many people. Otherwise, the losses would have been even greater, an Earth Descendant said. Then what should we do now? Retreat? An Earth Descendant asked. But what if it's not what we think? What if there really is a yin-yang flower here? What if the news we received wasn't deliberately released by them? They only knew that we were coming, so they followed us. If we just leave like this, wouldn't we have missed the opportunity? An Earth Descendant said reluctantly. Let's gather together first and continue to search. They will definitely come again. When the time comes, we can capture one of them and ask them. Xiaoling Yu thought for a while and made his decision. Then, he led everyone forward. Although everyone gathered together and the search area was reduced a lot, they had no other choice at the moment. The other party seemed to be very patient. They didn't intend to engage in a large-scale conflict with the Earth Descendants. Xiaoling Yu and the others didn't encounter any more attacks. They must be deliberately lulling us. They want to wait for us to separate before attacking us separately, an Earth Descendant said. Let's not separate. The Yin prison continent isn't too big. We should be able to go around it in 3,000 years, Xiaoling Yu said calmly. The 11 Earth Descendants stayed together, but the other party didn't make a move. After searching for nearly 1,000 years, Xiaoling Yu and the others arrived in front of a large rift valley. What surprised everyone was that at the bottom of the rift valley, hot magma flowed. The magma was formed from an unknown source, but it flowed endlessly like a long, fiery river. Magma and flames were originally yang energy. However, the yin energy near the rift valley was denser than other places. Therefore, Xiaoling Yu and the others found it strange and stopped here. If the yin prison continent really has a yin-yang flower, it should be in a place where the yin and yang energies mix. We should be able to find it if we search for the source of this magma river, an Earth Descendant guessed. Xiaoling Yu also felt that this was reasonable, so he led everyone to go against the current. Chapter 428. Without any hesitation, Xiaoling Yu and the others dove into the cave and continued to swim upstream. The cave was very long and spacious, but the deeper they went, the stranger the feeling they got. The surrounding temperature kept rising, but the surrounding yin qi also kept increasing. This was the first time they had encountered such a strange environment. However, the more it was like this, the more they felt that it was very likely that there was a yin-yang flower here. Although they had never seen a yin-yang flower before, they understood many characteristics of the yin-yang flower from the ancient books. According to the ancient books, the yin-yang flower could only be nurtured in places where both yin and yang qi existed at the same time and were very dense. It seemed that the immortal who had provided the information to the mercenaries had been here before. It was not nonsense when he said that there might be a yin-yang flower here. After 3 days, the group finally reached the end of the lava river. This was a very large cave. Above the cave was the empty belly of the mountain, but below the cave was a huge lava spring. The spring constantly churned and roared, pushing waves of magma out of the cave, forming a long river of magma. Shaolin Yu and the others searched carefully for a long time, but did not find any trace of the yin-yang flower. However, the yin-chi here was indeed denser, enough to suppress the immortal senses of immortal emperors. The temperature here also made all the earth descendants, except for Shaolin Yu, sweat profusely. "It seems that we have to go down and take a look," one of the earth descendants suggested. "The temperature down here must be even higher. How are we going to go down?" One of the earth descendants frowned. "Relax your minds. I will put you into the divine abode and then go down," Shaolin Yu instructed. After putting everyone into the divine abode, he jumped into the spring. A huge force kept surging, but could not stop Shaolin Yu from sinking. The high temperature was not a threat to Shaolin Yu at all. Not long after Shaolin Yu entered the lava spring, a group of almost 100 experts from the immortal dimension arrived here, and the person in the lead was surprisingly the immortal exalt, Hu Yunzi. "They're quite bold. They actually went down," one of the immortal emperors said with a smile. "They feel that there will be yin-yang flowers below. Naturally, they want to go down and take a look." Hu Yunzi stroked his beard. "Could there be a yin-yang flower below?" An immortal emperor asked. "I don't know either, but I do know that regular people can't reach the very depths of the spring unless they have supreme quality defensive god artifacts. The conflict between yin and yang is just too intense. It seems invisible, and it's extremely stable because it's evenly matched. However, once an external object or force falls in, the conflict between yin and yang will worsen. The object or force will become a target, and the slightest carelessness will result in the destruction of the soul," Hu Yunzi explained with a shake of his head. If they die down there, we can save a lot of effort." An immortal emperor laughed. Everyone don't slack off. If they notice danger in advance, they'll definitely retreat. At that time, a bitter battle will be unavoidable." Hu Yunzi spoke very cautiously. "Why don't we set up the heaven-sealing divine refining array here?" An immortal emperor suggested. After a moment of thought, Hu Yunzi nodded. Shaolin Yu was an extremely cautious person. He knew that the spring was definitely not safe, so he descended very slowly. At the same time, he probed around very carefully. He did not dare to advance rashly. After 4 hours like that, Shaolin Yu suddenly stopped. He had tossed down a god artifact that he had obtained from Mao Zhan. The god artifact was actually violently attacked by 2 strands of invisible energy. In a single moment, cracks appeared on its surface, and a while later, the low-quality god artifact directly shattered. Shaolin Yu had been using the god artifact to scout the path for himself before. His caution had finally paid off. If it were not for that, he would have been attacked by the 2 strands of invisible energy earlier. When he destroyed the god artifact, extremely powerful presences naturally erupted from beneath Shaolin Yu's feet. Even though he tried his best to stabilize himself, he was still pushed several thousand meters up. From the powerful presences, Shaolin Yu could only sense the 2 completely different presences of yin and yang. Furthermore, they were both extremely powerful. Shaolin Yu did not dare to let the spiritual abode descend to probe. Although the quality of the spiritual abode was not low, once it descended, the connection between Shaolin Yu and his mind would be cut off. It would be very difficult for him to retrieve the spiritual abode. He did not dare to enter the spiritual abode to probe again, because even if the spiritual abode could withstand it, it might still be trapped inside. After pondering for a while, Shaolin Yu did not probe with the artifact anymore. Instead, he sent a stream of chaotic true fire down below. To Shaolin Yu's pleasant surprise, after the purplish-black chaotic true fire landed, it actually did not trigger the 2 strands of invisible yin and yang energy. However, he soon figured it out. The primal chaos true fire was released by the primal chaos energy, and the primal chaos energy was the origin energy. It was very inclusive and had a very strong affinity with other energies. Therefore, it would not trigger the yin and yang energies to attack because the primal chaos energy would not destroy the balance below. After that, Xiao Yu wrapped himself in the purplish-black, chaotic true fire and descended. Although he could still feel the impact of the yin and yang energy, and the pressure was much stronger than before, Xiao Yu could still withstand it as long as the yin and yang energies did not clash violently and did not target him as the main target of the attack. This layer wasn't shallow, and Xiao Yu had used an entire hour to pass through it. He reckoned that with the current standards of the experts in the immortal dimension, besides himself, there was probably no other expert who could pass through this layer. In other words, Xiao Yu should be the first to descend. At least, after the realms were separated, he was the first to descend. Below was still a world of lava, but Xiao Yu immediately saw a rock that was constantly rotating. Moreover, that rock gave Xiao Yu a very familiar feeling. It was as if he had seen it before or possessed it. After pondering for a while, Xiao Yu suddenly thought of something, and a jade box appeared in his hand. When the jade box opened, a rock was revealed. This rock was obtained by Xiao Yu when he was chased by Princess Mononoke in the cultivation realm. After a space storm, it was formed by the fusion of two special materials with diametrically opposite attributes. All this time, this strange rock had been lying quietly in Xiao Yu's storage treasure. He would occasionally take it out to study it, but he could not find anything special about it. The rock at the bottom of the magma spring looked exactly the same as this rock, which was why Xiao Yu took it out. What surprised Xiao Yu even more was that as soon as the jade box was opened, the rock that he had kept for a long time flew out and crashed into another rock. The rock that was originally here was knocked out of its original position, and Xiao Yu saw a strange flower with only two fully open petals. The two petals were black and white, and between the petals were two slender stamens. These two pistils were also black and white. Yin-yang flower. Xiao Yu's eyes lit up, and he looked a little excited. Without caring about the rock that he had kept for so many years, Xiao Yu came to the side of the yin-yang flower, and then wrapped the silver moon broken sword in the primordial fire and started to draw on the ground where the yin-yang flower was rooted. Without any surprise, Xiao Yu kept the yin-yang flower in the jade box, and then hid it in his storage treasure. With the yin-yang flower in hand, Xiao Yu felt a lot more relaxed. Then, he looked at the two rocks that had collided with each other. What made him feel even more strange was that as the two rocks collided with each other, the surrounding yin-yang energy gathered, and the two rocks invaded each other at the same time, gradually fusing together. After waiting for nearly 2 months, the two rocks finally stopped, but they had already fused into one. The surrounding yin-yang energy was still gathering, and the speed was getting faster and faster. After waiting for nearly another 10 years, the surrounding yin-yang energy no longer gathered, and Xiao Yu could no longer feel the fluctuations of yin-yang energy nearby. After carefully sensing it, Xiao Yu was surprised to find that this place was no different from an ordinary underground magma world. It was no longer as dangerous as before. Xiao Yu did not think too much about it. He tentatively approached the newly formed rock, and it did not reject him. He tried to put it away, and it did not reject him. After putting away the rock, Xiao Yu stood up and prepared to leave. However, just as he jumped out of the magma spring, he was surrounded by rolling flames, and at the same time, a very powerful aura pressed down on him. Formation. Xiao Yu was shocked because he felt a very familiar aura of a formation. The next moment, he remembered that he had experienced the power of this formation in the divine tomb, and at that time, this formation was set up by Hu Yunzi and Fairy Lan Yao. The refining ability of this formation was extremely strong, but the raging flames within were useless against Xiao Yu. However, this formation had another powerful aspect, and that was its extremely strong sealing ability. Last time, Xiao Yu had charged out when the formation was resting. Otherwise, he would not have been able to charge out so easily. Xiao Yu was anxious about Elder Qi's emergency situation, so he naturally would not sit around and wait. He immediately began to use the Primal Chaos Demonic Seal, Primal Chaos True Fire, Armored Puppets, and many other methods to attack the formation, but he did not gain much. If he wanted to go down again, he would need to break the formation because he had been completely locked down by the formation. As long as he made any movements, he would be crazily pushed out by the formation's power. The moment he entered, the formation had completely closed, so he had no way out. This was because he had obtained the yin-yang flower too easily, so he had been a little careless. Shaolin Yu's attacks were not useless against this formation, but it would take a long time to break it. Chapter 429. 1 year, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. Although Shaolin Yu's efforts made this array more and more unstable, Shaolin Yu still couldn't break it and was still trapped inside. Every day Shaolin Yu stayed in this array formation, Elder Qi was in more danger. Reality was so helpless and cruel. Even though the yin-yang flower was in their hands, they couldn't deliver it to Elder Qi. Shaolin Yu and the 10 Thear-cranked experts from Earth were incomparably angry and anxious. Another 1,000 years had passed, and Shaolin Yu still couldn't break this array formation. However, the array formation's power was gradually increasing. They must have mobilized people again. Shaolin Yu guessed. In fact, Shaolin Yu was still worried about something. They hadn't returned for a long time, and the Earth-descendant experts from the East Imperial Continent might still come to check. They were very likely to be schemed against by Hu Yunzi and the other Celestial World experts. Break the array. Spare no effort to break the array formation. However, this array formation was impregnable and indestructible. Furthermore, the person controlling the array formation seemed to know that this array formation couldn't kill Shaolin Yu. He used all the power of the array formation to trap and defend, making Shaolin Yu's progress in breaking the array formation even slower and more difficult. The hope of breaking the array formation was very slim. After thousands of years of crazy attacks, this array formation still showed no signs of breaking. Calculating the time, Elder Qi most likely couldn't hold on any longer. Even though Shaolin Yu and the others were incomparably angry, there was nothing they could do. Another 2,000 years passed. Shaolin Yu suddenly stopped attacking. His face was filled with guilt, self-blame, and sadness. The soul imprint that Elder Qi left in Shaolin Yu's communication artifact suddenly disappeared just now. This proved that Elder Qi had died. Hu Yunzi Lan Yao, I swear to destroy your entire family. Destroy your entire family. Shaolin Yu's anger almost turned into madness. His primordial fire turned into a few purplish-black fire dragons. Together with the divine light released by the thousands of armored puppets, they rampaged through the formation. However, they could only cause the formation to shake continuously. After attacking wildly for a while, Shaolin Yu gradually calmed down. He knew that no matter how agitated he was, it was useless. The other party would not let him go easily. Although Elder Qi was dead, there were still many descendants of Earth waiting for him. Elder Qi's last wish had to be fulfilled by him. Thus, Shaolin Yu stopped her meaningless attacks, calmed her mind, and tried her best to enter a state of cultivation. Right now, the most important thing for him was to comprehend the truths of chaos. Last time, he had relied on the grayish-black metal piece in his sea of consciousness to pass by luck and advance to the early stage of the chaotic divine transformation stage. However, if he still didn't comprehend his realm and digest the chaos truth, then he didn't need to think about continuing to improve his strength. The chaos truth had already turned into chaotic scenes that were deeply engraved in the depths of his soul. Right now, what he needed to do was to present those scenes in front of him and comprehend them one by one. Although Shaolin Yu's comprehension ability was not considered heaven-defying, it was definitely not inferior to ordinary geniuses. In the past, he had not tried to comprehend it, nor did he have the time to do so. Now that he was trapped in this array, he could work hard. The misty, chaotic world suddenly exploded. The clear rose, the turbid sank, and yin and yang were formed. Water vapor condensed and condensed into water, then evaporated into water vapor. Seeds sprouted, weathered wind, frost, rain, and dew, becoming a tree that could be hugged, but seeds fell, male and female mated, giving birth to new life. The old died, and the young became strong. Hundreds of rivers flowed and merged into the ocean. The scenes presented everything in the primitive world and expressed everything in nature. The seemingly simple scenes were full of the truths of the boundless world. Xiaoling Yu's mind gradually calmed down and sank into these scenes. He was like an indifferent traveler. Everything had nothing to do with him, but everything was in his eyes. Yin and Yang and Tai, the cycle of nature. Everything was like this. Was this everything? When Xiaoling Yu had this thought, his soul suddenly trembled. The entire golden soul pearl shone brightly, causing the 5 cloud flowers above the chaos demon infant's head to appear even more beautiful than before. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu had a feeling that he had truly entered the chaotic divine transformation stage. His power didn't increase, and the realm of his soul didn't increase either. However, he felt as if he had pierced through a thin window paper, and a wider world was revealed before his eyes. No wonder the chaos force is stronger than the other types of origin force. No wonder it can contain everything. It is the most primordial existence, and it evolved into everything in the universe. Everything more or less has its aura. This is why it can be everywhere. Chaos is divided into yin and yang, and everything is also in the cycle of yin and yang. In the past, I cultivated the chaos force to be close to everything. Now, it is the cycle of yin and yang. In the past, I didn't understand everything, and I didn't understand everything. Therefore, when I tried to break through to the chaotic divine transformation stage, I couldn't see through the chaos force of the cycle of yin and yang. Now that I've seen the chaos force of the cycle of yin and yang, I need to continue to explore its mysteries. I need to understand it in my heart, master it in my soul, and gather it in my body. Only when I understand yin and yang can I truly face the chaos force. Only then can I become a true chaotic force expert. As time passed, Xiaoling Yu's understanding of the scenes that contained the chaos force grew deeper and deeper. Naturally, he understood more and more. These were things that he should have been able to understand when he tried to break through to the chaotic divine transformation stage. Now that he understood it, it was like buying a ticket after boarding the boat. It didn't increase his realm by much, but it made him more aware of what he was doing and what he needed to do in the future. Of course, the chaos force was too profound. Xiaoling Yu had only understood a little bit of it. He needed more time to continue to understand it in the future. After waking up from his meditative state, an Earth descendant expert in the spiritual abode told Xiaoling Yu that nearly 200,000 years had passed. This made Xiaoling Yu sigh again. When he was comprehending the chaos force, he almost didn't feel the passage of time. This was because he was completely immersed in it. His strength didn't increase by much, but Xiaoling Yu felt a lot more grounded and more confident. He narrowed his eyes and observed the large formation that didn't weaken at all. He said, "This formation is nothing more than a reversal of yin and yang. Only then can it have the effect of sealing heaven and earth. That's why it needs such a large amount of energy to support it in order to conform to the cycle of yin and yang. The method to reorganize the order of yin and yang should be easy to break." All the fluctuations in the large formation were forcefully suppressed and sealed by the formation. Xiaoling Yu couldn't borrow the power of heaven and earth. He could only rely on himself. "I could do it myself." Xiaoling Yu's mind moved. Waves of chaos force surged out and condensed into a circle of yin-yang fish in front of him. This was the manifestation of the chaos demonic seal. However, it wasn't the chaos seal. It was Xiaoling Yu's extension of the chaos seal. After comprehending the chaos force, Xiaoling Yu became more familiar with the chaos force in his body. The methods he used were no longer limited to those recorded in the 9 Revolutions chaos formula. Chaos force transformation into yin and yang. Xiaoling Yu shouted. The circle of yin-yang fish in front of him began to spin rapidly. It was originally a wave of chaos force, but it gradually turned into two waves of yin and yang energy that rubbed against each other. It was because he had felt the fluctuation of yin and yang energy under the lava spring that he could divide the chaos force. Under Shaolin Yu's control, the circle of yin-yang fish continued to expand and spin faster. It also changed everything around it. The space that was sealed by the formation was really gradually recovering its original appearance. Open for me. Shaolin Yu threw out the circle of yin-yang fish. Wherever it passed, it seemed to pierce through time and space. It opened up a passage in the misty formation. The passage disappeared in a flash. However, Shaolin Yu still rushed out through it. As for Hu Yunzi and the other celestial realm experts who were controlling the formation outside, when yin-yang fish attacked the formation, they all felt their cultivation stagnate for a moment. After the yin-yang fish disappeared, it suddenly surged again, causing their qi and blood to become chaotic. Their faces were pale as they coughed up large amounts of blood. Hu Yunzi, you and that Lan Yao woman should wash your necks clean. While the celestial realm experts were trying to suppress the chaotic qi and blood in their bodies, a cold voice with a strong killing intent entered their ears. Immediately after, before they could see clearly who was speaking, a few golden balls flew into the crowd and exploded. Boom! Boom! Golden light flashed and thunder rumbled. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 immortal emperors' bodies were blasted into flying lights. Shaolin Yu had found these golden balls in Mao Zhen's storage ring. Mao Zhen had used them to deal with Shaolin Yu. However, Shaolin Yu had not been blown up at that time. After throwing a few golden balls, Shaolin Yu entered the spiritual abode. She did not give the celestial realm experts any chance and immediately escaped far away. Although she had broken the formation and gained a lot, there were not only celestial supremes, but also many celestial emperors. No matter how confident Shaolin Yu was, she knew that she could not defeat so many experts. Therefore, she was very rational and temporarily retreated. These golden balls were just to teach them a lesson. She was collecting some interest in advance. Thief. As an celestial supremacy expert, Hu Yunzi was naturally not injured by the golden balls. After he stabilized himself, he could no longer find the spiritual abode. He could only curse angrily. After teleporting for nearly 1,000 years, Shaolin Yu finally returned to the East Imperial Continent. First, he sent a message to Anya. After finding out that Anya and Qing Xian were fine and that the Nanhua mortal sect had replied calmly, he entered the East Imperial Continent. Elder Qi had indeed turned into ashes. However, Zhongji said that Elder Qi did not blame Shaolin Yu and the others for not returning in time. Before he died, he repeatedly reminded them not to lose their minds because of his death. The descendants of Earth were still weak and had to be careful in everything. Back then, the descendants of Earth had indeed sent many experts to the Yin prison continent. As Shaolin Yu expected, none of those experts had returned alive. Chapter 430. Shaolin Yu also wanted to immediately counterattack. It would be best if he could trample Old Man Hu Yun and Fairy Blue Jade beneath his feet. However, he also knew that now was not the best time. The descendants of Earth did not have the strength to fight against the large sects of the immortal world, so he did not agree to the suggestion. He even advised everyone to calm down. We have fewer and fewer people. If we don't fight now, we won't have much hope in the future. It's better to fight. Even if we all die in battle, it's better than being bullied by them, said an expert of Earth's descendants. This was indeed a more realistic problem. No matter how strong Shaolin Yu was, it would be difficult for the descendants of Earth to become truly powerful. If the descendants of Earth wanted to become truly powerful, they could not rely on just one person. It was just like how the descendants of Earth did not dare to be too strong in the past. After all, there were too many experts in the immortal world. Compared to the entire immortal world, the descendants of Earth were like a wave in a vast ocean. Although the descendants of Earth were not enemies with the entire immortal world, the large sects that represented the immortal world were already like fire and water with the descendants of Earth. Even if Xiao Yu was strong enough to kill any expert in the immortal world, he would ascend to the immortal world sooner or later. After he ascended, what would happen to the descendants of Earth? He could not possibly kill all the immortals in the immortal world, right? The strength of one person in an organization was not a long-term solution. Only when everyone had a strong foundation and could continuously nurture powerful people in the future could the organization be strong for a long time. The reason dragons were strong was because they had an extremely powerful bloodline. They had the indelible legacy left behind by their ancestors. Therefore, although there were not many dragons, they had always been the leaders of the immortal world, and this position was very firm. Although there were many powerful sects in the immortal world, they might not have been strong in the past, and it would be difficult for them to continue to be strong in the future. This was not only because human cultivators did not have a powerful bloodline bestowed by the heavens, but also because of a lack of foundation and legacy. Bloodlines were almost impossible to change. Not every cultivator was as lucky as Xiao Yu. Therefore, the only way to solve the descendants of Earth's biggest problem was to consider their foundation and legacy. Xiao Yu was confident that she could withstand the pressure from all sides of the celestial world. However, it would not be easy to help the descendants of Earth move towards prosperity. The reason why the cultivators on Earth in ancient times were powerful and could dominate the world was not because one of them was very powerful. The descendants of Earth all had very strong ancestors, but their ancestors did not leave them any powerful inheritances and foundations. Xiao Yu wanted the descendants of Earth to be as strong in the future, so she could only increase the accumulation of the descendants of Earth from this generation and then use it as the foundation and inheritance of the descendants of Earth in the future. There's no point in a head-on confrontation. We're still too few in number. For now, let's split up and keep in touch secretly. I'm guessing that the various powers in the immortal realm are waiting for us to gather together and then capture us all in one fell swoop. After discussing with everyone, Xiao Yu calmly analyzed, "We, the descendants of Earth, are not much different from the ordinary cultivators of the immortal world. If we scatter and hide, how can they find us? Now that we're gathered together and fighting them, it's actually what they're most happy to see. Isn't this the same as before?" A powerhouse of Earth's descendants asked. "Previously, we had Elder Qi and me. It was like we had two celestial supremes at the same time. We could fight it out, but now that Elder Qi has left, I'm the only one left. It's hard to do it alone." Xiao Yu shook her head. "Then when will this situation end?" A descendant of Earth continued to ask. "When we have one or more powerhouses who can intimidate the entire immortal world, this situation will come to an end. Of course, that can only intimidate them for a while. In the long run, we have to continue to operate and increase our wealth so that we can recruit powerhouses from the immortal world to work for us. At the same time, we have to expand the scale of our descendants from Earth." Xiao Yu thought for a while and answered, "I can understand recruiting powerhouses from the immortal world to work for us. After all, a truly powerful organization gets others to work for them. They don't do it themselves. But how can we expand our scale? Every time one of us ascends or dies in the divine tribulation, we will have one less person. It's difficult to even replenish our numbers. So how can we expand? We can't just randomly pull someone over and say that they're descendants of Earth, right?" A descendant of Earth asked, puzzled. "There's only one way to expand the scale of our clan, and that is to increase the number of children. If every descendant of Earth has 8 to 10 children, then those children will have more children. Wouldn't our scale be able to expand quickly?" Xiao Yu said with a smile. All the descendants of Earth present were speechless. Xiao Yu also knew that although cultivators of Earth's descendants and ordinary cultivators of the immortal world would want to find a suitable dual cultivation partner, they would not want to have a bunch of children. In fact, many cultivators did not even want to have children. This was because cultivators were different from mortals in the secular world. For cultivators, giving birth to a child required a lot of sacrifices from the mother of the child. Generally, a female cultivator would need many years to give birth to a child. After that, it would take many years for them to recover. Moreover, after the child was born, the parents could not ignore it. They had to worry about the child's cultivation. Most couples would only grit their teeth and give birth to one child. Do we lack immortal stones now? Xiaoling Yu suddenly asked. Haha, of course not. I reckon that we lack immortal stones the most now, Zhongji said with a smile. The descendants of Earth did not dare to announce their identities in the past, but they did a lot of business in private. After all, they had nothing to do. If our clan expands 10 times, will our cultivators lack immortal stones for cultivation? Xiaoling Yu asked again. With our current accumulation, even if our clan expands 100 times, we won't lack immortal stones for cultivation, Zhongji said with certainty. Since we don't lack immortal stones for our descendants to cultivate, what's wrong with having a few more children? Xiaoling Yu said casually. But it's already so difficult for our wives to give birth to a child. How can we let them give birth to more children? An Earth descendant shook his head and said, This is easier to solve. If one wife gives birth to one child, then everyone will marry a few more, Xiaoling Yu replied. Marry a few more? The Earth descendant powerhouses in the room were speechless again. It's settled then. In the future, I will be mainly responsible for resisting the other party's powerhouses and work hard to improve my strength. I will strive to have the strength to injure or kill a supremacy-level powerhouse in the shortest time possible. Meanwhile, you all will go back and work hard to have children while maintaining your previous businesses. Every male descendant of Earth must have at least 5 children. This is an order. In any case, we have a lot of immortal stones, so it's definitely not a problem to marry a few wives. The key is whether everyone has the determination to do their best to strengthen and rise the descendants of Earth, Xiaoling Yu said solemnly. There were many areas where the descendants of Earth needed to improve. Xiaoling Yu could only solve one problem at a time. We're not even afraid of fighting with our enemies, so we definitely won't be afraid of marrying a few more wives. However, when Zhongji said this, he suddenly paused and smirked. Then, he said to Xiaoling Yu, As our leader, shouldn't Brother Xiao set an example for everyone by marrying a few more wives? This time, it was Xiaoling Yu's turn to be speechless. However, there was no lack of stubborn people among the descendants of Earth. At this time, someone stood up and said, Don't do to others what you don't want others to do to you. If Boss Xiao can't do it himself, how can he give us such an order? Most of us have deep feelings for each other. The pressure of marrying more wives is no less than Boss Xiao's. Everyone looked at Xiaoling Yu. He only had the thought of finding a mouse hole to crawl into and escape. However, in the end, he forced himself to nod firmly and said, Don't worry. I will definitely work hard with everyone in marrying more wives. After this discussion, the descendants of Earth who had originally gathered in the East Imperial Continent all teleported away with Xiaoling Yu's instructions. In Xiaoling Yu's opinion, this was not a sign of weakness. It was a rational change of strategy. If he had not comprehended the chaos maxim in the past 200,000 years, he might have fought Hu Yunzi and the others to the death after he came out. The chaos maxim made him understand one thing. There was a limit to the rise and fall, and there was karma. The development of anything needed a process and could not be done on a whim or impulse. To be strong, one must first have a strong foundation. To kill the enemy, one must first be able to protect oneself. If one killed the enemy but suffered heavy losses, they might as well perish together with the enemy. Or they might not be able to kill the enemy, but they would be destroyed. This was not desirable, and it was not magnificent. It was just stupid. One must have courage, but one could not bleed for nothing just because of it. Brother Xiao. Oh no, it should be Boss Xiao. I will supervise you on behalf of everyone. Marry more wives, haha. Zhongji laughed and said as Xiaoling Yu was preparing to leave the East Imperial Continent and return to the Nanhua Immortal Sect. You'd better complete your mission first. You don't even have a wife, and you still have the cheek to laugh at me. After Xiaoling Yu replied, he left the East Imperial Continent with a gloomy expression. It was originally a very good plan, but he did not expect himself to be part of it. The Nanhua immortal sect was indeed as peaceful as before. After Qing Pingzi and Qing Wei lost the chance to compete for the position of sect master, they went into seclusion. The experts that belonged to their factions were also grouped together by Qing Xian. After 200,000 years of hard work, Qing Xian had eliminated the factions in the Nanhua immortal sect. Anya had ascended to the immortal world several 100,000 years ago. Firstly, she often dual cultivated with experts like Shaolin Yu. Secondly, she had received careful guidance from Qing Xian. Thirdly, she did not lack any cultivation resources. Therefore, her cultivation base improved rapidly and was now a late-stage, overarching heavenly supreme immortal. Let's have a child. Chapter 431. What's wrong? Are you going to fight with the strong and leave something behind? Anya asked anxiously. No. Shaolin Yu shook his head repeatedly. Then, he gloomily repeated what he had said to the descendants of Earth in the East Imperial Kingdom after some slight modification. However, Anya said unhappily, if you want Qing Xian, just say it. Don't beat around the bush. Shaolin Yu was surprised. He just thought about it, but he didn't know how to explain it. When he was in the East Imperial City, he had indeed trapped himself, but he definitely did not say that because he had other thoughts. However, it would be a lie to say that Shaolin Yu didn't have any feelings for Qing Xian. Everyone loved beauty, and Shaolin Yu also believed that love should be unswerving. However, he was a man after all, and he wasn't a particularly stubborn man. He also had a bit of greed when it came to love. Most men had that kind of greed, but some people controlled it well and wouldn't show it, let alone act on it. Shaolin Yu was one of those people. He was willing to be loyal to Anya. But what about that time with Miao Ying in the Devil Realm? That time, he didn't take the initiative but was very passive. However, it was also a fact that he broke the precept. After breaking the precepts for the first time, the matter of breaking the precepts became less important. It was like a monk in the secular world who drank wine or ate meat once. The possibility of breaking the precepts again was much higher than a monk who had never broken the precepts. Moreover, the pressure of breaking the precepts again was not as great. Anya was unhappy, so Shaolin Yu coaxed her. Although she became more amiable, Anya didn't agree to have a child. Shaolin Yu went into seclusion again after staying in the Nanhua immortal sect for a while. This time he planned to study that stone. In the spiritual abode, Shaolin Yu sat cross-legged and took out a jade box. When the jade box opened, a dull, iron-like stone was revealed. Shaolin Yu took it out and studied it for a long time. Then, he used the primal chaos fire to refine it. However, the primal chaos fire was now able to melt even low-grade divine weapons, but it didn't seem to have any effect on this stone. While Shaolin Yu was in seclusion, Anya didn't leave the house and just sat on the first floor of the pavilion. One day, Qing Xian came to visit and said with a hint of bitterness, "Ever since junior brother Shao came back, I haven't gone to your place to play for a while." Qing Xian was obviously joking, but Anya felt a little awkward. Anya hesitated for a moment before saying, "Elder sister, Anya has a question for you. Please tell me the truth." "Really? You and I are sisters, so of course we'll be straightforward. Ask away. I promise I won't lie." Qing Xian nodded. "Sister, if he wants to marry you, will you be willing?" Anya gritted her teeth and asked directly while pointing to the second floor. "Well," Qing Xian paused for a while, then smiled and said, "Haha, don't think too much, sister. I already said I won't fight with you. Sister, just tell me, if he wants to marry you, will you agree?" Anya continued to ask, "My good sister, why would he marry me when he is such a good wife like you? Did you listen to those fellows in the sect talking nonsense again? Those people like to talk nonsense. Don't take it to heart." Qing Xian patted the back of Anya's hand and comforted her. "No one said it. He said it himself." Anya lowered her head and said. Qing Xian found it hard to believe, but since it was Anya who said it, she had to believe it. Xiao Lingyu didn't say it, but Anya was overthinking it. Qing Xian fell silent, and the atmosphere became awkward. It was an indisputable fact that Qing Xian was interested in Xiao Lingyu. Not only was it because Xiao Lingyu had saved her several times, but it was also because Xiao Lingyu's strength was enough to sway the hearts of female cultivators. However, Xiao Lingyu never showed any interest in Qing Xian, so Qing Xian had to suppress her feelings. Now that Qing Xian suddenly heard these words from Anya, she couldn't help but overthink. Now that Qing Xian was thinking about it, Anya knew the answer. Qing Xian didn't seriously think about what she should do if Xiao Lingyu really wanted to marry her, but now she had to think about it carefully. First of all, Xiao Lingyu already had Anya. If she married him, wouldn't she become a concubine? She was an expert at the peak of the late-stage Immortal Emperor realm, and also the sect master of Nanhua Immortal Sect. Wouldn't it be too unfair for her to marry him? Second of all, Anya. Would Anya agree to this marriage? If Anya strongly opposed it, what should she do? Third of all, would he be able to treat her sincerely? Or would he still be able to treat Anya like he used to after having her? In fact, some things were afraid of being explained. If they weren't explained, it might fade away as time passed, and the more it was mentioned, the more profound it would be. Originally, Xiao Lingyu's feelings for Qing Xian were very shallow, so shallow that she didn't care much about it. However, Anya kept mentioning it these few days, which reminded Xiao Lingyu to think about it carefully. This made Xiao Lingyu subconsciously feel that she really did have feelings for Qing Xian. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that this was the case. Sometimes, things were so muddle-headed, especially when it came to relationships. Xiao Lingyu didn't think too much about it now. Instead, she devoted herself to studying the stone. Unfortunately, she didn't get any results after working hard for a few years. No matter whether it was burning and refining with the primal chaos true fire or chopping with the silver moon broken saber, it was completely useless on this stone. Xiao Lingyu could only be sure of one thing. This stone contained the power of yin and yang, and had been perfectly fused together, so it didn't release any aura. However, its quality was better than a high-level divine weapon like the silver moon broken saber. If this treasure can be refined into a defensive magic treasure, it'll definitely be invincible in the celestial world. If it can be refined into an offensive magic treasure, it should be invincible. With such a judgment, Xiao Lingyu naturally became more envious and moved. According to the theory of chaos, chaos is divided into yin and yang. This thing is yin and yang combined into one, so shouldn't it be chaos? Thinking of this, Xiao Lingyu's eyes lit up. She felt as if the clouds had parted to see the sun. However, my understanding of the theory of chaos has only just entered the level of yin and yang. The fusion of yin and yang into chaos is a higher level. I'm afraid that I'll only be able to see through some more profound things when I reach the sixth revolution. Then I'll truly understand what kind of existence this stone is. How should I use it now? Gradually, Xiao Lingyu frowned again and fell into deep thought. Just as Xiao Lingyu was thinking hard, a piece of news came from the spatial barrier between the celestial world and the demon world that made all the experts in the celestial world uneasy. A spatial crack had appeared on the spatial barrier between the two worlds. However, it wasn't stable yet and couldn't allow the cultivators of the two worlds to pass through. However, the appearance of this spatial crack indicated that it wouldn't be long before the war between the two worlds started. Originally, Hu Yunzi and many other experts in the celestial world were prepared to continue dealing with the descendants of Earth. However, their attention was immediately diverted when this news came. After all, the descendants of Earth were weak and couldn't do anything to these big shots in the celestial world. Moreover, they had already disappeared, so the big shots in the celestial world couldn't feel the pressure from the descendants of Earth. They could ignore the threat from the descendants of Earth, but they couldn't underestimate the pressure from the demon world. The demon world had the strength of a world. Moreover, in every war between the two worlds, the demon world was always the victor and would cause great damage to the celestial world. This time would probably be no exception. Giving up on encircling and suppressing the descendants of Earth was only temporary. Moreover, it was only giving the descendants of Earth a chance to breathe. However, if they didn't treat the war seriously, once the celestial world was easily defeated and the army of the demon world invaded the celestial world, the various sects in the celestial world wouldn't have it easy. Therefore, after some calculations, Hu Yunzi and the other experts in the celestial world rushed to the demon-subduing continent and began to call for the various forces in the celestial world to send experts to the demon-subduing continent in preparation for the war with the demon world. When Shaolin Yu had just entered the celestial world had already been preparing for the war between the two worlds. At that time, Shaolin Yu had even been captured by the Nanhua Immortal School. Now that the war between the two worlds was imminent, if it wasn't for Shaolin Yu leading the descendants of Earth to fight against the Heaven Incense School, Hu Yunzi and the other experts in the celestial world would definitely have been stationed in the demon-subduing continent. The Nanhua Immortal School was also one of the major sects in the celestial world and had the obligation to contribute to the celestial world. Therefore, the Nanhua Immortal School had also sent a large number of disciples to the demon-subduing continent. This was to contribute to the celestial world and not for Hu Yunzi and the other big shots in the celestial world. After all, once the army of the demon world invaded the celestial world, the Nanhua Immortal School would also be in trouble. Moreover, according to countless years of practice, in order to ensure that the major sects would send out true experts to battle, there was an iron law in the celestial world that the teams of the major sect had to be personally led by their sect master. When the sect master went to the battlefield, he would definitely bring along the experts of his own sect to ensure that everything was safe. However, many of the major sects in the celestial world weren't like this. Although their sect masters would go to the battlefield, they wouldn't bring along the elites of the sect. They would even invite some itinerant cultivators or directly capture some immortals to make up the numbers. None of the sect masters of the major sects were mediocre people. It was very difficult for them to die on the battlefield. Although Qing Xian had just stabilized his position as the sect master of the Nanhua Immortal School, he still resolutely led the team of the Nanhua Immortal School and set off from the East Imperial Continent. When Qing Xian set off, Shaolin Yu was still in seclusion and had just made a discovery. Shaolin Yu didn't know about this, and he was also in the god's residence. Even if Anya wanted to remind him to come out and send Qing Xian off, he couldn't send a message to Shaolin Yu. Before leaving, Qing Xian said to Anya, "If I can come back alive, I will give my sister an accurate answer." Anya said nervously, "Sister, you must take care of yourself. Don't risk your life." Chapter 432. Qing Xian led a group of cultivators from the Nanhua Immortal Sect out of the sect's encampment. Anya also went into seclusion to cultivate. The unforgiving divine sword contained the sword intent left behind by an ancient expert of the sword Tao. Anya relied on his understanding of the sword intent to make continuous progress in the sword Tao. Shaolin Yu was still studying the strange stone in his divine abode. Recently, he finally found something. When he divided his chaos demonic energy into yin and yang energy, the strange stone would directly absorb the yin and yang energy. After the energy was absorbed, the strange stone did not change at all. Shaolin Yu had seen the stone absorb the yin and yang energy. The yin and yang energy contained in the lava spring on the Netherworld continent was enormous, but it was still completely devoured by the stone. Therefore, Shaolin Yu did not continue to break down his chaos demonic energy and pour it into the stone. In the past, Shaolin Yu had dripped a few drops of his blood essence onto this stone. However, this stone did not absorb his blood essence. Now that this stone could absorb the energy that he had decomposed, Shaolin Yu's mind became active again. He dissolved his essence blood into the energy, and then divided it into yin and yang energy, which was then absorbed by the strange stone. Even though this strange stone had absorbed Shaolin Yu's power, which was wrapped in his blood essence, it was still the same as before. There was no change at all. Shaolin Yu was sure that this was a chaos stone that contained a lot of chaos demonic energy. The chaos demonic energy in it was of a much higher level than the chaos demonic energy in his body. It was probably stronger than the divine power in the god realm. However, Xiaoling Yu could not extract the energy from it, nor could he use it. After thinking hard for a long time, he still could not find a way. Just as he was about to give up, he suddenly thought of something. With a thought, he summoned the strange cub he obtained from the Valley of the East Pole Demon Sect's Imperial Beast Hall in the Demon Realm. This strange cub, like Xiaoling Yu, contained chaos demonic energy in its body. It had always been with Xiaoling Yu. However, after arriving in the Immortal Realm, Xiaoling Yu had been busy and rarely let it out. Of course, the demonic beasts of the Devil Realm would easily attract the attention of others in the Immortal Realm. Moreover, they would not be used to it. It had been sleeping in the spirit beast pouch for a long time, so the little guy naturally didn't make much progress. Now that it came out, it also felt lightheaded. Xiaoling Yu placed the strange cub beside the rock. The strange cub first sniffed lazily, and then its sleepy eyes immediately lit up. It even let out a low whimper, as if it was very excited. "There's a way." Xiaoling Yu's eyes lit up as she stared at the cub. However, what gave Xiaoling Yu a headache was that this strange cub actually opened its mouth to chew on the stone after observing it for a moment. Even an extremely sharp high-grade divine weapon, like the Silver Moon Broken Blade, could only leave a shallow white mark on the rock. How could this strange cub chew through it? Although the teeth of the strange cub were very sharp, they couldn't even leave a shallow white mark on the rock. What gave Xiaoling Yu a headache was that the little guy seemed to be angry. It actually opened its mouth wide and swallowed the strange stone into its stomach. "Spit it out quickly. That thing can't be eaten casually. Can you digest it? What a glutton." Xiaoling Yu slapped the little guy's head and scolded anxiously. Unfortunately, after the little guy swallowed the stone, it began to hold its stomach and roll on the ground. It looked like it was in unbearable pain, as if it didn't hear Xiaoling Yu's reminder. It also looked like it didn't have the strength to spit out the stone. "Spit it out quickly." Xiaoling Yu was also very anxious. After all, this little guy was the factory that created the blood crystals for him. The small beads that the little guy spat out from time to time could also help Xiaoling Yu protect the Chaos Demon Infant. Naturally, Xiaoling Yu didn't want it to be in any danger. The little guy's body began to shine with a chaotic light. A powerful aura surged out, preventing Xiaoling Yu from getting any closer. Even I feel that the energy contained in that stone is terrifying. This little guy is probably going to be stuffed to death this time. Xiaoling Yu stared helplessly from not far away and secretly felt sorry for the little guy. Perhaps the pain was too intense. The little guy first struggled for a while before falling to the ground with a bang and fainting. Xiaoling Yu saw that the little guy's limbs were still twitching. He knew that it wasn't dead, and his expression relaxed a little. Not long after, the pain woke the little guy up again. It held its stomach and jumped up and down before fainting again. This repeated over and over again. Although the little guy was suffering, Xiaoling Yu realized that it was gradually growing in size. As the little guy's aura was too strong, and it was surrounded by layers of chaotic light, Xiaoling Yu couldn't use his mind to see the situation inside its body. Even the mental connection that they should have had was blinded. Other than silently praying and worrying for the little guy, Xiaoling Yu had nothing else to do. The little guy didn't explode, but it endured the pain for too long. 1 month, 1 year, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years. The little guy's pain continued, but Xiaoling Yu was already a little numb from worry. Now, the little guy looked about the same size as an ordinary crocodile, but it was much better looking. The scales on its back still only covered its back. Other than its back, its entire body was covered in soft and thick hair. There were still only 7 colorful spots on the scales on its back, but those 7 spots were very bright now. There were also clearly mysterious runes flowing on the scales. Xiaoling Yu saw that the little guy was only in pain and didn't seem to be in danger. He didn't bother to keep an eye on it and found a place to meditate and cultivate. This continued for nearly 100,000 years before the little fellow finally spat out a dull gray bead. It no longer showed any signs of pain, and it just obediently crawled on the ground, panting for breath. The little guy was now 30 feet long and 6 feet tall. It looked majestic, but the aura on its body was gradually retracting. When Shaolin Yu came closer, the strange beast that could no longer be called a little guy handed the dull gray pearl to Shaolin Yu like before. Shaolin Yu was grateful, but he didn't refuse. He knew that this thing was useless to the little guy, so he accepted it and put it into his body. The chaos demonic nascent soul didn't stand on ceremony. When the pearl entered his dantian, he swallowed it into his stomach. Shaolin Yu knew that as long as his dantian was shaken, the dull gray pearl would release energy to protect the chaos demonic nascent soul. He was just a little curious about the level of the defense released by the dull gray pearl. After carefully sensing the strange beast's strength, Shaolin Yu couldn't help but be surprised. This was because the chaotic energy contained in the strange beast's body was not only of a higher quality than his chaotic demonic energy, but it was also much denser than his chaotic demonic energy. In terms of cultivation strength, this strange beast should be comparable to a cultivator in the middle or late stage of an immortal emperor. Moreover, its realm was very stable. If the quality of its chaotic energy was taken into account, even an immortal supremacy would have a headache if they encountered it. The quality of the divine power in an immortal supremacy was about the same as the chaotic demonic energy in Shaolin Yu's body. If Shaolin Yu's cultivation strength was improved, it should be on the same level as the chaotic energy in the strange beast's body. It was more powerful than the divine power of an ordinary god-rank cultivator. However, Shaolin Yu needed to go through the chaos divine tribulation and cultivate to the 6th revolution of the 9-revolution chaos formula before his cultivation strength could evolve. Although you've suffered for many years, it's worth it. You're really hard to fathom. You can swallow that kind of stone directly and digest it. Shaolin Yu patted the strange beast's head with a satisfied expression. Then he suddenly said, "Since you can eat so much, I'll call you Glutton from now on." Woo! The strange beast seemed to be very dissatisfied with its name and let out a low growl to express its protest. It's a little unpleasant, but it's very appropriate. It's settled then. You're not allowed to protest. Shaolin Yu's face was full of joy. He then said, "Take a rest first. I'll take you out for a walk in a few days." Shaolin Yu left the god abode in a good mood and saw that Anya was in seclusion beside him. He did not want to disturb her, but just as he turned to walk towards the stairs, he immediately felt a sense of danger. Just as he was about to dodge, his body was hit by a sword light. With a bang, Shaolin Yu's body involuntarily moved forward a few steps. Feeling a little pain on his back, Shaolin Yu turned around with a smile and said, "Your cultivation has improved again. The attack power of this sword light is also not bad. If it was an ordinary immortal emperor, he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die from your sneak attack." Anya had already gotten up from the bed and put the merciless divine sword behind her back. She said, "Don't try to fool me. Although this divine sword is powerful, I'm only at the mid-stage of the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm. Even if it was a sneak attack, how could it hurt an immortal emperor?" Shaolin Yu pulled Anya into his arms and said confidently, "You can't do it now. You will definitely be able to do it when you reach the immortal monarch realm. This merciless divine sword is not an ordinary divine sword. If you can understand the sword intent in it and obtain the inheritance of the ancient sword god, you will be very powerful." Anya shook her head and said, "It's easier said than done to obtain the inheritance of the ancient sword god. It's just that I have only understood a little of the sword intent contained in this divine sword. If I want to take a shortcut to obtain the inheritance, I will have to fuse this merciless divine sword with my immortal nascent soul to form a sword nascent soul. But this fusion is too dangerous." Shaolin Yu smiled casually and said, There's no rush. Take it slow. With me around, no one in the 3 realms can make you suffer." "No one can make me suffer, but what if you do?" Anya asked. "Of course not," Shaolin Yu said. Chapter 433. Not long after Xiao Yu ended his seclusion, news came from the demon-subduing continent that the spatial rift had stabilized, and the war between the immortal and demon realms had broken out. It would take at least 500 years for this news to spread from the demon-subduing continent to the East Imperial continent. Therefore, the war between the two realms had been going on for at least 500 years. It seems that I've been in seclusion for a long time. I don't know what's going on over there. Xiao Yu said worriedly. I hope the immortal world can win. Anya said with uncertainty. Hee, it's almost impossible for the immortal world to win. Xiao Yu shook his head. Why? Anya asked, puzzled. The demon realm cultivators are aggressive and good at fighting. Their overall combat strength is stronger than that of the immortal world. Originally, the demon realm had a certain advantage. Now, on the immortal world side, even if Fairy Lan Yao's injuries are stable, I'm afraid she hasn't completely recovered. Elder Qi, the immortal sovereign, has already fallen. How can the immortal world side only have Hu Yunzi as an immortal sovereign? Xiao Yu explained with a sigh. There should be other immortal sovereigns in the immortal world, right? Anya asked again. I don't know if there are other immortal sovereigns, but I know that the immortal world and demon realm have more immortal sovereigns. Xiao Yu paused and continued. Moreover, the demon realm has a demon sovereign who was invincible in the three realms in the past. He should have recovered more than 80% of his strength. If he also participates in the war, the immortal world's chances of winning will be even smaller. The immortal world can't win, but they should be able to delay until the spatial rift disappears and the war between the two realms is over. Anyway, the immortal world loses every time. It doesn't matter if they lose again. Anya was very optimistic. Even if they can delay, they will suffer heavy losses. I estimate that more than half of the immortal world's experts will die, but I'm afraid they won't be able to hold on this time. Xiao Yu still said with a worried face. You're also in the immortal world now, but you are from the demon Dao. If you participate in the war, who will you help? Anya asked curiously. The war between the two worlds has nothing to do with me. Who wins and who loses has nothing to do with me. However, I must face the demon sovereign of the demon world. As soon as Xiao Yu finished speaking, she felt the communication bead in her storage ring vibrate. She took it out and smiled bitterly. Looks like I have to set off too. The message was from Elder Peng, saying that he was waiting for Xiao Yu in the East Imperial Kingdom. Elder Peng's intention for inviting Xiao Yu over was obvious. He wanted to work with Xiao Yu to deal with the demon supremacy. This was something that had been agreed upon before. Xiao Yu was a little hesitant at this moment. She was not hesitant about whether she should go or not, but whether she should bring Anya with her. Although he was very strong now and was not afraid of the immortal supremacy, he was not strong enough to look down on all the experts in the immortal world and demon world. Even if he fought with Hu Yunzi alone, they should not be able to defeat each other. If the demon supremacy recovered well, Xiao Yu was afraid that not only would it be difficult for her to defeat him, but she might also be injured or even killed by him. If he brought Anya with him, even if Anya could always hide in the divine dwellings, if Xiao Yu really encountered great danger or was killed by others, he might lose the divine dwellings, and Anya, who was hiding in the divine dwellings, would be in danger. However, if he did not bring Anya with him, he really could not be at ease. Anya did not have any thoughts. If Xiao Yu brought her along, she would go. If not, she would not go. After some consideration, Xiao Yu still brought Anya to the East Imperial City first, and then entrusted Anya to Zhongji and the other experts of the Earth Descendants. He was now the strongest expert of the Earth Descendants, and also the hope of all the Earth Descendants. Xiao Yu believed that the experts of the Earth Descendants would take good care of Anya. When Xiao Yu left, Zhongji said, Boss Xiao, don't worry. As long as one of us Earth Descendants is alive, we will not let sister-in-law be in any danger. In fact, Zhongji was much older than Xiao Yu. Most of the Earth Descendants in the immortal world were older than Xiao Yu. However, everyone now called him boss and elder brother. Naturally, Anya became the sister-in-law of all the Earth Descendants. Although the Earth descendants had suffered great losses in the past few years, there were still a few late-stage Emperor experts. As long as they did not encounter supremacy experts, they would not be in danger. Furthermore, the situation they had been in for countless years made the Earth descendants very good at hiding. As long as they wanted to hide, even supremacy experts would not be able to find them. Xiaoling Yu left without worry. After meeting up with Elder Peng, they teleported to the demon-subduing continent together. The war between the two realms was usually protracted. Xiaoling Yu estimated that in a mere 500 years, the outcome would not be decided. The two sides must still be in a fierce battle. However, what Xiaoling Yu and Elder Peng never expected was that when the two of them were halfway through their journey, they had already received the news of the immortal world's defeat. It was said that the immortal world had set up many powerful formations at the entrance of the spatial crack. Originally, these formations alone would have been able to resist the attack of the Devil World for a long time, but this time, the immortal world did not have as many immortal venerables as before to preside over these formations. As a result, the Devil World army was able to break through the immortal world's defense more easily than in the previous wars between the two worlds. Countless Devil Dao cultivators rushed out from the spatial crack and fought with the immortal world army on the demon-subduing continent. Both sides paid an extremely heavy price, and in the end, the immortal world side was the first to be unable to hold on and took the initiative to withdraw from the demon-subduing continent. The Devil World side occupied the demon-subduing continent, allowing the Devil World cultivators to enter the immortal world without any hindrance. The Devil World cultivators used the demon-subduing continent as their stronghold and began to attack the other continents of the immortal world. The transmission array could not be used because the immortal world side would definitely seal off all the transmission arrays near the demon-subduing continent. Even if the Devil Dao cultivators could teleport over, they would immediately die on the spot after exiting the transmission array. Therefore, the Devil Dao army was led by some Emperor stage rankers. They flew into the starry sky in batches and used some high-level flying magic treasure to travel. On the other hand, the immortal world side was heavily guarding the few continents of the immortal world that were close to the demon-subduing continent. The reason why the news of the immortal world's defeat spread was because these continents of the immortal world had also fallen under the crazy attacks of the Devil Dao army. Although the cultivators stationed on the continents of the immortal world did their best to defend, they did not have the suicidal attitude of the Devil World cultivators. They could have defended themselves, but because they were afraid of fighting, they lost their positions. When Xiaoling Yu and Elder Peng received the news, the 100 or so continents of the immortal world near the demon-subduing continent had already been completely occupied by the Devil World cultivators. The news of the Devil World's easy victory would naturally spread back to the Devil World, causing more and more Devil World cultivators to enter the immortal world through the spatial crack. In the eyes of the Devil World cultivators, the immortal world was like a cake, a lamb without any resistance, and they were like fierce tigers. The overall space of the Devil World should be a little smaller than the immortal world, but the number of cultivators in the Devil World was definitely uncountable. The immortal world had already opened a gap, and the Devil World cultivators were pouring out like a flood. Many Devil World cultivators were still hesitating whether or not they should come over, but when they heard that the immortal world's resistance was so weak, they dispelled their hesitation and directly rushed to the immortal world. Some of the Devil World cultivators who originally did not want to come, more or less, also came. This caused the pressure on the immortal world to be even greater. The Devil World did not lack military strength and was unable to occupy too many continents of the immortal world. If the immortal world completely gave up resisting, the cultivators from the Devil World would definitely be able to fill up all the continents of the immortal world in the east. However, the Devil World cultivators did not plan to occupy a certain continent of the immortal world for a long time. They only needed to plunder all the cultivation resources that they could use on the continent of the immortal world, and then they could kill their way to the other continents of the immortal world. Even if they did not need the cultivation resources, the Devil World cultivators would not let them go. Most of them would directly destroy them. Therefore, every time they could not win, the immortal world would try their best to resist in order to reduce their losses. Fortunately, the immortal world was prepared for their defeat in this battle. Not only had they moved the resources of the immortal world continents close to the demon-subduing continent a long time ago, when they were defeated, they would also clean up those continents once again. Therefore, the demon realm was unable to obtain much benefits from the beginning. However, this also made the Devil World's army's desire to kill their way into the depths of the immortal world even stronger. In history, the Devil World's army had killed their way into the immortal world many times, but most of them had only swept through the thousands of continents near the demon-subduing continent. These few continents were nothing to the east of the immortal world, and were not even worth mentioning to the entire immortal world. The immortal world's greatest loss every time was still the countless experts of the immortal world who had died on the battlefield. However, if they did not die, the Devil World's army would march straight in and cause even greater losses. The immortal world had also killed their way into the Devil World's territory many times. However, the Devil World was relatively barren, and the aura in the Devil World space was very disgusting to the immortals. Therefore, even if the immortal world's army killed their way into the Devil World, they would return with a swing of their spear. They continued to rush towards the spatial barrier between the two realms. After another 100 years, Xiao Lingyu and Elder Peng had already arrived at the front line of the army of the two realms. After asking an Emperor-level immortal, they found out that the reason why the immortal world side was defeated so quickly and thoroughly this time was because the immortal world side only had 3 immortal sovereigns, while the Devil World side had 5 devil sovereigns. Moreover, among the 3 immortal sovereigns of the immortal world, Fairy Lan Yao was still in a situation where her old injuries had not healed. They had suffered a great loss in terms of the number of absolute experts, so they naturally could not win this battle. Although immortal sovereigns generally would not attack cultivators below immortal sovereigns, the defeat of immortal sovereigns would still have a great impact on the battlefield below immortal sovereigns. Chapter 434. On this day, Xiao Lingyu and Elder Peng arrived at the Huan Tai continent, which was controlled by the immortal world's army. They had just walked around the continent for less than half a day when they suddenly saw countless stars falling from a starry sky. The two of them looked at the starry sky strangely. Looking up, the countless stars almost connected into a galaxy, falling from the depths of the sky at an extremely fast speed. Even with Xiao Lingyu's eyesight, he couldn't see how many stars there were. He only knew that there were a lot of them. At this time, the immortal world's army stationed at the Huan Tai continent sounded the alarm. Elder Peng narrowed his eyes and said, "It seems that those stars are the flying magic weapons of the demon world's army." Xiao Lingyu said in a light tone, "I'm afraid that the Huan Tai continent is going to fall." Elder Peng sighed and said, "It's not just the Huan Tai continent. This time, the demon world's army should be attacking the entire immortal world's defense line at the same time. I estimate that a large area of the immortal world's space will fall." Xiao Lingyu wasn't a true demon Dao cultivator, let alone an immortal Dao cultivator, so he didn't care who won and who lost. However, Elder Peng was a standard immortal Dao cultivator. He didn't want the immortal world to be ravaged by the demon world's cultivators. After a while, the countless stars were not far from the ground. Xiao Lingyu's will extended upwards without concealing anything. Within the range of his will, there were countless huge flying magic treasures. Although they were disorderly, they were flying towards the Huan Tai mainland in an imposing manner. They were densely packed and covered the sky. The immortal world's army station on the Huan Tai continent was also very large, so it was impossible to hide or conceal. Before the two sides even started fighting, they had already locked onto each other's position. The flying magic weapons of the demon world slightly adjusted their direction and rushed towards the immortal world's army without hesitation. Before they landed on the ground, those flying magic weapons disappeared at the same time. Then, the sky was covered by the demon world's army like an endless black cloud. Black light, and blood fell from the sky. As soon as the demonic army arrived, they launched an attack without any explanation. The army of the immortal world on the ground also put up a defense at the same time, and then launched countless immortal talismans and immortal treasures into the air. If it was just a head-on battle with magic weapons or talismans, the Devil Dao army would not have the slightest advantage at all. They would even be directly defeated by the immortal world army. Therefore, the Devil World army did not pull away from the immortal world army to attack. Instead, dozens of Devil Emperor stage powerhouses worked together to create a devil space, sending the Devil World cultivators into the immortal world army. This devil space was formed by the domains of these Devil Emperors. Only Devil Dao cultivators, magic treasures, and devil talismans were allowed to pass through. Cultivators of the immortal world, immortal treasures, and immortal talismans would be greatly suppressed and unable to form an effective attack. The close combat skills of the Devil Realm cultivators were far superior to the immortals of the immortal realm. Therefore, they would not use magic treasures or spells against the immortal realm cultivators. The experts of the immortal realm also knew this, so their immortal emperor experts also gathered together to attack the other party's demonic space. Those devil emperors did not fight the immortal emperors of the immortal world head-on at first. They just kept moving the demonic space's position, sending more and more devil world cultivators into the immortal world army. At first, the Devil Dao cultivators who fell into the immortal world army could only create a little chaos for the immortal world army, and then they would be quickly eliminated. However, as the number of Devil Dao cultivators who fell into the immortal world army increased, the immortal world army's formation gradually became chaotic. After all, they still had to resist the Devil World army's frontal bombardment. As a result, only 4 hours had passed, and the immortal world army was already in chaos. At this time, the Devil World Emperor of the Devil World would go to the immortal world emperor to fight, and the Devil World army could easily break through the immortal world army's defensive formation, causing the two armies to fall into a melee battle. These devil bastards are too cruel. I'll go and help. Elder Peng and Shaolin Yu had been watching near the battlefield. Seeing that the immortal world army was showing signs of decline and the immortals were being slaughtered, Elder Peng could not bear it anymore. Shaolin Yu originally wanted to dissuade him, but after thinking about it, he gave up. Elder Peng should be able to deal with a battle of this level calmly. Elder Peng did not go to the battlefield where the Devil Emperors were fighting, but on the ground. Wherever the immortals could not resist, he would go and wipe out a large number of Devil Dao cultivators with a wave of his hand. Unfortunately, the battlefield was too big. Even if Elder Peng continued to attack like this, he would not be able to reverse the decline of the immortal world army. After all, many immortals had already retreated in fear, and the immortal world army's formation was also in tatters. However, the Devil World side would definitely not allow Elder Peng to wantonly slaughter the Devil Dao cultivators below. Soon, 2 late-stage Devil Emperors charged over. Elder Peng was a late-stage Immortal Emperor, and he also had the green divine fire left behind by Mao Zhan. Although he was skilled in refining and not fighting, he had a divine weapon on him. Even if he was fighting 1 against 2, he would not be at a disadvantage. In particular, Elder Peng's fire control technique was very brilliant. Under his control, the green divine fire gave the 2 late-stage Devil Emperors a headache. If the 2 of them could not win, then they would send 2 more. After fighting for less than an hour, Elder Peng was already surrounded by 8 Devil Emperors. There were originally many Immortal Emperors on the Immortal World side, but they had lost a few in the fierce battle just now, and most of the remaining had fled. Elder Peng naturally could not deal with so many opponents, so he shouted at Shaolin Yu, "Brother Shao, If you continue to stand by and do nothing, this old man's old life will end here. Haha, I'm coming, I'm coming. Xiaoling Yu saw that Elder Peng had been beaten until he was dizzy and disoriented. He was already in a very sorry state and could only use his divine fire and defensive divine weapon to defend himself. So he laughed loudly and flew over. Perhaps it was because these demon emperors coveted Elder Peng's divine fire and divine artifact, so their attacks were very fierce. Even though Xiaoling Yu had just arrived and killed one of them with the primal chaos devil seal, they had no intention of retreating. With so many emperor-level experts fighting, the space of the immortal world shook. Xiaoling Yu naturally could not sneak up on them, and could only fight with his true strength. However, his true strength was enough to easily kill these devil emperors. However, Xiaoling Yu did not kill them. He only dealt with these devil emperors, occasionally injuring one of them and forcing them to call for reinforcements. These devil emperors attacked for a long time without success, and their side was constantly suffering losses. They knew that they had encountered a tough nut to crack, so someone sent a message to the devil Dao cultivators below, asking them to call for reinforcements. At this time, the teleportation array of the Huantai continent had already been occupied by the devil world cultivators, and the defeated immortal world army had fled to the starry sky. The devil Dao cultivators could use the teleportation array to teleport to the immortal world continents that they had already occupied, quickly attracting reinforcements. After waiting for a few hours, a devil venerable led more than 10 devil emperors to provide reinforcements. The immortal emperors who had been fighting with the other devil emperors in the starry sky did not even bother to greet Xiaoling Yu and Elder Peng. They immediately fled into the starry sky. Dozens of immortal emperors and a devil venerable charged over, but when the devil venerable saw two enemies from the immortal world, he froze on the spot. Since this devil venerable did not move, the other devil emperors naturally did not move either. They were all a little curious, but no one dared to ask, "Why are you here?" This devil venerable wore a red gauze dress, revealing a pair of snow-white, tender feet. She looked at Xiaoling Yu with great surprise. This female devil venerable was Miao Ying, who had advanced to the late-stage devil venerable after dual cultivating with Xiaoling Yu once. "Haha, don't you want to see me?" Xiaoling Yu asked with a smile. Elder Peng, who was beside Xiaoling Yu, was confused. He knew that Xiaoling Yu came from the devil world, but he did not expect Xiaoling Yu to know a devil venerable from the devil world. After all, Xiaoling Yu's cultivation was not high when he left the devil world, and Xiaoling Yu had never mentioned this before. "It's not that I don't want to see you, but your progress this time is really unbelievable." Miaoing shook her head in response, but her beautiful eyes were fixed on Xiaoling Yu, full of surprise and confusion. "I have no choice. If I don't improve faster, won't I die when I meet that person?" Xiaoling Yu seemed a little depressed. "No matter how strong you are now, I don't think you are a match for him. He has already recovered 90% of his strength, and it should be difficult for him to find a match in the three realms." Miaoing shook her head again, her voice seeming to be worried. "I don't know how strong he was in the past, and I also don't know how strong he is at 90% of his strength. However, I do know that only one of us can survive, so no matter what, I have to find him and try. I have no other choice." Xiaoling Yu was still calm. Xiaoling Yu's words were calm, but he was still a little worried. In the past, he had the strength to roam the three realms unrivaled. Now, even if he was at 90% of his strength, he would still be able to easily defeat a late-stage venerable expert. However, he, Xiaoling Yu, could not even kill an immortal venerable like Hu Yunzi, so how could he kill the devil venerable? "I may be able to help you with other things, but I can only watch and wait for the matter between you and him." Miaoing also said calmly, "I don't think I asked for your help." Xiaoling Yu sneered. Any hot-blooded man would not be able to tolerate Miao Ying's attitude. No matter what, Miao Ying was now Xiaoling Yu's woman, but she was still thinking about other men and even treated him as the same as other men. What kind of bullsh *T was this? I know that you cherish old friendships, and you have a deep relationship with him, but I don't think I forced you to come into my arms, right? Don't make it so difficult for yourself. Even if you and him come together to deal with me, I won't say anything. We don't have a deep relationship in the first place." Xiao Yu was furious, so his words were naturally a little harsh. However, his expression was still indifferent. Miao Ying was indeed struggling in her heart. On one side was the person she had admired for many years, and on the other side was her true man. She did not know how to choose. Although she had already made up her mind to cut off all ties with the devil venerable, how could she give up the feeling she had bitterly clung to for so many years so easily? Originally, she did not have a deep relationship with Xiao Yu, but after that time, she had some feelings for him. Therefore, when she heard Xiao Yu's words, she really found it hard to accept. Let's go. Chapter 435. Miao Ying left with all the demon emperors, but many of the demon realm's army that attacked the Huantai mainland remained. They wanted to sweep the resources of the Huantai mainland. There were no immortals left to guard the Huantai mainland. Although Elder Peng wanted to help clean up the demon cultivators on the Huantai mainland, he gave up on the idea when he saw Xiao Yu's bad mood and thought that the demon sovereign could come at any time. Let's go. Xiao Yu let out a heavy sigh and headed towards the teleportation formation with Elder Peng. After meeting with Miao Ying, although Miao Ying's words made Xiao Yu very unhappy, he still obtained some information. The demon sovereign had recovered 90% of his strength. He must have taken back most of the life imprints he had scattered in the past several 100,000 years. Except for Xiao Yu, all the cultivators with the demon sovereign's life imprints did not have the strength to fight against the demon sovereign. On the surface, it seemed that the demon sovereign could easily recover to his peak strength. Xiao Yu and Elder Peng both felt that this was very troublesome, but as Xiao Yu said, there was no other choice. They could only fight to the death. This time, the demon sovereign came to the immortal realm with the demon realm's army. This was Xiao Yu's opportunity. More than half of the 1,000,000 years had passed. If Xiao Yu did not kill the demon sovereign within 1,000,000 years, he would be in danger of dying. And if he did not attack the demon sovereign this time, Xiao Yu might not be able to find him after the demon sovereign returned to the demon realm. The demon sovereign's loss of a life imprint did not have much of an impact, but Xiao Yu could not. He had to kill the demon sovereign to save his life. Xiao Yu felt that the hope of advancing to the demon sovereign realm in the remaining several 100,000 years was too slim. He knew how difficult it was to understand the chaos principle. After leaving the Huantai mainland, Xiao Yu and Elder Peng continued to search the front lines of the immortal demon battlefield. The two would occasionally attack and trap a dozen or so demon emperors, waiting for the demon realm to send reinforcements. However, each time, the demon realm sent a different demon sovereign. It was either Toba Yi, Huyan Lianxi, Miao Ying, or the old man Xiao Yu had met on the immortal slaying continent. These demon sovereigns couldn't do anything to Xiao Yu, but other than Miao Ying, who left after meeting Xiao Yu, the other demon sovereigns wanted to fight Xiao Yu. When these demon sovereigns realized that Xiao Yu also had a demonic aura, they would usually stop and ask about it. After that, they would no longer have the intention to continue fighting. Among these ordinary demon sovereigns, Xiao Yu didn't have a good impression of Toba Yi and Huyan Lianxi. However, he didn't have any deep hatred for them. He wouldn't waste his energy to tangle with these two, much less fight to the death. Over time, the experts of the devil world came to know about the existence of Xiao Yu and Old Peng. Naturally, the immortal world also knew about it. However, no experts of the immortal world came to recruit the two of them. They also didn't come to interfere. After all, the two of them were attacking the devil world. Under the powerful attacks of the demon realm, the immortal realm was defeated. More and more continents were swept by the demon realm. 2,000 years after Xiao Yu and Elder Peng left the East Imperial continent, 1/3 of the continents in the east of the immortal realm had already fallen. There was still a long time before the end of the War of the Two Worlds. With the resistance of the Immortal Realm's army, the countless continents in the east of the Immortal Realm would fall before the spatial rift closed. This was the weakest the Immortal Realm had ever been in the countless War of the Two Worlds. Xiao Lingyu and Elder Peng finally encountered the Demon Sovereign. Similarly, the two armies of the Immortal Realm and Demon Realm were in the midst of a fierce battle. The Demon Sovereign still looked like the cultivator with the surname Foam. He wore a black robe, but his face looked much younger. This time, it wasn't that Xiao Lingyu and Elder Peng trapped many Demon Realm demon emperors to lure the Demon Sovereign over. Instead, the Demon Sovereign was attacking the Immortal Realm's defensive position with a group of Demon Realm soldiers. When Xiao Lingyu and Elder Peng arrived, the two armies were in the midst of a fierce battle. The Demon Sovereign was also fighting with an Immortal Realm Immortal Sovereign. This Immortal Realm Immortal Sovereign wasn't Hu Yunzi or Fairy Lan Yao. Instead, it was an expert that Xiao Lingyu and Elder Peng had never seen before. Beside this Immortal Sovereign were several Immortal Realm Sword Sect Immortal Emperors. When Xiao Lingyu was in the Devil Dimension, he knew that the Devil Exalt that roamed freely through the three dimensions in the past had occupied the body of a sword cultivator with the surname Foam. So, the Devil Exalt was actually an expert in the Sword Dao. Perhaps it was because of this that the Devil Exalt had attacked the Immortal Dimension's forces that were guarded by the experts of Sword Sect. Of course, it was also possible that the Immortal Realm's Sword Sect experts intended to compete with the Demon Sovereign in the Sword Dao. These Emperor Realm experts of Sword Sect were all holding divine swords. Even if they weren't all late Immortal Emperors, any one of them was comparable to an expert like Qing Xian. When they worked together, they wouldn't be any weaker than any Immortal Sovereign in the Immortal Realm. Therefore, even if the Immortal Realm's Sword Sect didn't have any Immortal Venerable experts, no one in the Immortal Realm dared to provoke them. Even Immortal Venerables had to keep a low profile when they went to Sword Sect. As for the Immortal Venerable who was with the experts of Sword Sect, his cultivation base was obviously much higher than Hu Yunzi and Fairy Blue Jade. It was estimated that he was a late Immortal Venerable who had secluded himself from the world. Normally, such experts would be preparing for their divine tribulation, which was why they didn't know him well. In this battlefield, the Immortal Realm had invested a lot. They had sent 2 late Immortal Venerables. On the other hand, the Devil Realm only had 1 Demon Sovereign. However, Xiao Lingyu and Old Peng could see that the Devil Realm had the upper hand. The Demon Sovereign held a divine sword in his hand. It wasn't of high quality, but every time he waved it, there would be waves of might that seemed like the Milky Way pouring down from the 9 heavens. It was as if the divine sword in his hand was the only thing that could shine brightly in the heavens and earth. Although the late Immortal Venerable had abundant divine force in his body, and his divine ability and magic had reached the peak level in the 3 worlds, he would have been defeated long ago if it wasn't for the help of the sword formation of the experts of Sword Sect. These people were fighting in the starry sky, very far from the ground. Every time they attacked, they could see the Milky Way trembling and the space shattering. It was truly amazing. The Demon Sovereign didn't have any fancy movements. He only used his sword. Although those sword moves looked very simple, they contained supreme power. Now that so many Immortal Realm experts were attacking the Demon Sovereign, it was naturally a good thing for Xiao Lingyu and Old Peng. It was also a good opportunity. After watching for a while, they jumped into the battlefield and stood on the side of the Immortal Realm experts to deal with the Demon Sovereign. First, they released all the thousands of armored puppets. Then, they put on their divine robes and carried 2 divine sabers. Their bodies were bathed in the purple-black, chaotic true fire. Old Peng's green divine fire was the only thing that could threaten the venerable experts. Therefore, a green fire dragon was under his control, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It was incomparably ferocious. Xiao Lingyu, those armored puppets, and Old Peng could deal with 2 Immortal Venerables at the same time. In this way, the Demon Sovereign was facing 4 venerable experts at the same time. Originally, the demon sovereign was very relaxed. However, with the arrival of Xiaoling Yu and Old Peng, he felt the pressure. In the past, the demon sovereign was invincible in the three realms. In fact, he was invincible in one-on-one battles. He was forced to be sealed because he was besieged by too many experts in the three realms. It's you. Your speed of growth is really amazing. However, everything you do is for me. The heavens are really good to me. They let me be sealed for so many years and gave me such a great gift. Haha, kid died. The demon sovereign blocked the attacks from the immortal realm experts as he laughed and said a few words. Unparalleled demon sword. The demon sovereign threw out the divine sword in his hand. In an instant, sword light filled the sky and fell from the nine heavens. Xiaoling Yu had seen this sword move when he was in the demon realm. However, at that time, the demon lord's strength was not strong. Now, however, the attack power of the sword light that filled the sky was as strong as a divine artifact. No one dared to underestimate it. Xiaoling Yu and the other experts in the immortal realm chose to defend at this time. After all, there were too many sword lights. It was not a problem to take one or two of them head-on. However, when hundreds of them fell on their heads, even a cultivator with an extremely strong physical body like Xiaoling Yu had to be careful. Just as everyone was doing their best to resist the sword lights, the demon sovereign shouted again and created a demonic domain on the whole battlefield. In this demonic domain, there was a dense blood-red color. Various strange waves surged in from all directions in a disorderly manner. In an instant, all the other energies in the space were imprisoned. Xiaoling Yu and the others could also display the power of the domain. Unfortunately, in terms of domain, only the late-stage immortal sovereign could compete with the demon sovereign. Although Xiaoling Yu, Elder Peng, and a few other experts from the sword sect had strong combat strength, they were not true venerable experts after all. Therefore, they could not display the domain of a venerable. The immortal sovereign's domain only clashed with the demon sovereign's domain for a moment before it was completely suppressed. Under the joint attack of the experts from the immortal realm, they were actually forced into a passive position. At this moment, no one could see where the demon sovereign was. Their consciousness was also firmly restricted by the demon sovereign's domain. Originally, Xiaoling Yu's domain should be very strong. Unfortunately, he had only advanced to the early-stage chaotic divine transformation realm for a short period of time. He had not completely understood the chaotic domain, so he could not use it to resist the demon sovereign's powerful domain. In the past, the reason why this demon sovereign was able to roam the three realms unchallenged was because his domain was stronger than any other sovereign-level cultivators. With a stronger domain, he naturally had the upper hand and could completely suppress his opponent. Inside this blood-red domain, Xiaoling Yu and the others gathered together and constantly bombarded a spot with all their might, trying to blast open this domain. However, this domain was a little too strong. No matter how they attacked, it was completely useless. Chapter 436. He's trying to digest us with these blood waves, said the late immortal venerable nervously. We have to get out of here as soon as possible, said an expert sword sect. These blood waves were indeed very powerful. Xiaoling Yu had the physique of a divine tool, so when he touched the blood waves with his finger, he immediately felt waves of burning pain coming from his fingertips. He was incomparably shocked. Even his divine tool physique couldn't withstand it. One could only imagine how strong the corrosion of these blood waves was. The domain of this devil venerable had rendered the domain of a late immortal venerable useless. Coupled with the powerful blood waves in the domain, it was no wonder that he was invincible in the three realms. In the eyes of the cultivators of the three realms today, this domain was almost invincible. Even with the protection of the divine flame, Old Peng couldn't withstand it. Therefore, Xiaoling Yu directly kept him in his divine dwellings. The late immortal venerable's body was full of divine force, and with the protection of his divine tool, he wouldn't face any problems in a short period of time. As for the experts of Sword Sect, they gathered together and formed a circle of sword energy to resist the blood waves for a while. Therefore, Xiaoling Yu didn't need to worry about their safety. The domain only surrounded Xiaoling Yu and the other immortal experts, but not the thousands of armored puppets. However, Xiaoling Yu's consciousness was completely confined within the domain, so he couldn't command the puppets to help him. At this moment, the puppets were quietly hovering around the blood-red domain, motionless like iron statues. While defending themselves, they were also constantly bombarding the same spot, which was the only way for them to break out of the domain. Although the domain was powerful, the Devil Venerable certainly wouldn't consume much of his energy to maintain it against Xiaoling Yu and the other experts. Therefore, he wouldn't be able to persist for a long time. Now, it was time to see who could persist longer. Xiaoling Yu and the others naturally had to do their best to survive. Since the Devil Venerable had the upper hand and the initiative, he might not necessarily go all out. Whether it was the seal of Xiaoling Yu, the attack of the chaotic true fire, the divine ability of the late immortal Venerable, or the sword techniques of the experts of Sword Sect, none of them were weak. All of them could pose a threat to a venerable expert. When they attacked the same spot at the same time, that spot would naturally be easily broken. As long as the sealing power of this domain was broken, Xiaoling Yu and the others would be able to break out of it. However, this domain was different from the sky-sealing, soul-refining array. It followed and manipulated the power of nature. Xiaoling Yu could not use the Chaos Transformation spell to forcefully break out like he did in the sky-sealing, soul-refining array. At this moment, the late immortal Venerable and the other experts of Sword Sect were puzzled. Xiaoling Yu was obviously a devil cultivator with devil nature. Why would he join forces with a blacksmith to deal with the top experts of the devil world? But no matter how confused they were, Xiaoling Yu was on their side. Naturally, they didn't have any objections. After everyone attacked together for a while, it was unknown whether the Demon Lord had not recovered to its peak strength, or if the Demon Lord was deliberately going easy on them. In any case, Xiaoling Yu and the others had exhausted a lot of their energy to break through that point. The blood-red domain instantly collapsed, and Xiaoling Yu and the others once again faced the Devil Venerable. However, what Xiaoling Yu didn't expect was that as soon as they broke free, the Devil Venerable and the experts of Sword Sect fled into the distant starry sky. If Xiaoling Yu wasn't here, the Devil Venerable would probably chase after them. However, at this moment, the Devil Venerable was staring at Xiaoling Yu with a sneer. "I think you're here to look for me, right?" The Devil Venerable asked calmly. "So what if I am?" Xiaoling Yu forced himself to remain calm. "You're quite capable. Your body, aptitude, and cultivation method are all very good. They're much better than my current body. If I were to use them to cultivate, I would definitely be able to achieve much more than you." The Devil Venerable rubbed his nose and said, "That depends on whether you have the ability." Xiaoling Yu said indifferently, "Hee, I've seen your ability. It's far from enough." The Devil Venerable glanced at the armored puppets around him and said, "You don't have any helpers now. Those experts of the immortal world are all scared of death." Xiaoling Yu said, "I don't expect others to help me. You have backbone, ambition, and heroism." The Devil Venerable first praised and then said, "But the life imprint in my body far surpasses yours. Just based on this, I can easily kill you. With just a thought, I can make the life imprint in your body affect your life essence and end your life." Xiaoling Yu's expression remained calm as he said, "You can try." "Okay." The Devil Venerable didn't hesitate. He immediately connected with the life imprint he had left on Xiaoling Yu and received a response. Xiaoling Yu's body glowed with a bloody light. The life imprint in the Devil Venerable began to stir, but he still looked calm. The Devil Venerable kept casting spells, but his expression grew darker and darker. He couldn't make his life imprint leave Xiaoling Yu's body, and he couldn't use his life imprint to destroy Xiaoling Yu's life force. "Very good. You're using other high-grade bloodlines, to suppress my life imprint. The demon lord also noticed some clues, but then he said, "Your high-grade bloodline can only suppress my life imprint, but it can't destroy it. Even if I don't come to kill you, my life imprint will dissipate along with your life essence in 300,000 years. When that time comes, you will die." Shaolin Yu said, "That's why I'm here. I'm just here to speed up your death." The devil venerable said confidently, "We'll only know who lives and who dies after we fight." Shaolin Yu knew that he had to be more high-profile now. At the very least, he couldn't lose his momentum and courage. Otherwise, he really wouldn't have any chance of turning the tables. "Then I'll show you the difference between us." As soon as the devil venerable finished speaking, his body appeared to Shaolin Yu's left out of thin air. His palm was already on Shaolin Yu's shoulder. Faced with such speed, Shaolin Yu didn't even have the chance to react. His body was directly sent flying far away. Before he could stabilize himself, the devil venerable was already in front of Shaolin Yu. His palm hit Shaolin Yu's chest. Shaolin Yu could only endure the 2 consecutive palm strikes. He couldn't dodge or resist. This was the difference in speed. However, the devil venerable's physical attack didn't cause much damage to Shaolin Yu. Generally speaking, with such a huge difference in speed, there was no way to fight. After the devil venerable hit Shaolin Yu twice, he smiled in satisfaction. He felt that he was teasing his opponent. He wanted to see his opponent angry and in despair. Following that, the demon sovereign suddenly released his divine sense. The divine sense formed by his powerful soul force actually caused the space in the immortal world to fluctuate violently in an instant. It easily sealed off a large area of the surrounding space. Even Shaolin Yu felt as if a heavy divine mountain was pressing down on his shoulders when he was enveloped by the divine sense. This was the difference in cultivation level. It was also very big. Shaolin Yu's expression became more and more serious. Before he came, he really didn't expect the difference in cultivation level to be so big. Otherwise, he might have waited a little longer to face the devil venerable. But if he didn't come, how would he know the devil venerable's current level? Just based on one sentence from Miaoying? But when Miaoying said that Shaolin Yu wasn't a match for the devil venerable, she didn't know how powerful Shaolin Yu was. He hadn't even faced the devil venerable yet, but he was already afraid. This was definitely not Shaolin Yu's personality. Moreover, even if he were to hide and secretly improve himself, how could this demon venerable stop at nothing? With such a big difference, your body quality and Dharma treasures are almost useless. I think you should cooperate with me and let me take over your body. Otherwise, I'll destroy your body and soul, the devil venerable said with a smile. Since you've taken over my body, you'll definitely refine my soul. Otherwise, you won't be able to control my body and continue to cultivate my techniques. If I cooperate with you, I'll just be digging my own grave, Shaolin Yu replied coldly. I can keep a wisp of your soul and seal your consciousness and memories in it. I'll even choose a cultivator with good qualifications for you to help you take over the body and be reborn, the devil venerable tempted again. I don't need such pity, but if you can give up on your own accord, I can help you, Shaolin Yu said with a sneer. The reason why Shaolin Yu was so calm was that he still had a trump card that he hadn't used yet. Since you're so stubborn, I can only send you on your way. The devil venerable seemed to have completely lost his patience. He used his powerful divine sense to seal the space around Shaolin Yu. Then, he rushed to Shaolin Yu's side at an extremely fast speed. A moment later, his palm hit Shaolin Yu's body again. However, the palm power this time was obviously much stronger than before. Shaolin Yu was hit again. She felt waves of pain coming from the place where she was hit. The devil venerable's palm power was already enough to threaten a low-grade divine artifact. If Shaolin Yu didn't have any other way to defend herself, the devil venerable would only need to hit her a few more times to end Shaolin Yu's life. However, before Shaolin Yu could stabilize herself, she had already released the strange beast that she named Fudi. Roar! As if it could sense its master's anxiety and danger, The huge, chaotic, strange beast let out a furious roar as soon as it appeared. Then, its body glowing with chaotic light, it swept its long tail at the devil Venerable. The devil Venerable sensed the power of the chaotic aura on Foodie's body and didn't dare to take it head-on. He immediately retreated. You really have a lot of tricks up your sleeves. You can even get your hands on such a mystical beast. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.